Hello, puppies and kittens. This is another episode of Blasphemers Bible with the usual crew. Moving on to Job 19. Do we have any opening comments for this one?
I got nothing. I'm still trying to figure out where I am.
Of course,
So.
the great biblical scholar Lawrence, probably low dense.
Shush up.
Nothing to say about Job.
Hey, listen, you know what? No, I don't. This is not. We're still not nowhere near the best book of the Bible. So,
and we're not even at the best part of Job,
which is Chronicles, which we've already
We're
done.
just going to start with Job complaining, which, in fairness, he has every right to do. That he is right in this case. But yeah, at some point the whole back and forth does get a bit long.
You've gaslighted him.
Yeah, his friends are gaslighting him, but then God will come in and just like throw his dick around, be like, "I'm so big and strong. How dare you ask me shit? Fuck you."
Though this chapter is probably the most famous chapter of Job. Specifically,
39 and 40 are the ones that almost always come up in my conversations.
Yeah, but in verse 25 speaks about the Redeemer. And can you guess who the Redeemer is?
Jesus Christ, who would that be?
That's right,
Kenneth
that's John
Copeland.
Cena.
Not the skin suit guy. I swear to God, no one has ever looked so much like the guy in the first Men in Black who's wearing a skin suit and he's actually a giant bug.
Yeah.
As Kenneth Copeland.
Yeah, but Kenneth Copeland actually looks like the bad guy in The Mask when the bad guy puts the mask on.
And he goes,
Yep.
Yeah, I could see that.
Okay,
I'm
so
glad
we're
that
going to just jump into reading then.
Yes. I wanted to say, I'm glad I don't need to know anything about Kenneth Copeland.
Lucky you.
Yeah.
All right. Then Job answered, "How long will you torment me and break me in pieces with words? These 10 times you've cast reproach upon me. Are you not ashamed to wrong me? Are you not ashamed to wrong me? And even if it is true that I have erred, my error remains with me. If indeed you magnify yourselves against me and make my humiliation an argument against me, know then that God has put me in the wrong and closed his net around me. Even when I cry out, 'Violence!' I am not answered. Help, I'm being repressed. I call aloud, but there is no justice. He has walled up my way so that I cannot pass. He has set darkness upon my paths. He has stripped my glory from me and taken the crown from my head. He breaks me down on every side, and I am gone. He has uprooted my hope like a tree. He has kindled his wrath against me. He counts me as his adversary. His troops come on together. They have thrown up siege works against me and encamp around my tent. He has put my family far from me, and my acquaintances are wholly estranged from me. My relatives and my close friends have failed me. The guests in my house have forgotten me. My female servants count me as a stranger. I have become an alien in their eyes. I call to my servant, but he gives me no answer. I must myself plead with him. My breath is repulsive to my wife. I am loathsome to my family. Even young children despise me. When I rise, they talk against me. All my intimate friends abhor me, and those whom I love turned against me. My bones cling to my skin and to my flesh, and I have escaped the skin of my teeth, by the skin of my teeth. Have pity on me. Have pity on me, O you, my friends, for the hand of God has touched me. Why do you, like God, pursue me, never satisfied with my flesh? Oh, that my words were written down. Oh, that they were inscribed in a book that I'd be reading right now. Oh, that an iron pen and with lead they were engraved on a rock forever. For I know that my vindicator lives, and in the end he will stand upon the earth. And after my skin has been destroyed, then in my flesh I shall see God, whom I shall see on my side, and my eyes shall behold, and not another. My heart faints within me. If you say, How will we persecute him? And the root of the matter is found in him. Be afraid of the sword, for wrath brings the punishment of the sword, so that you may know there is judgment.
Yeah, well, a lot of this sounds like the stuff that I would say as an angsty teenager, who actually a lot of this stuff I still currently say actually. So like I'm not one to judge Job here in his depression and nihilism and self-loathing. I'm not one to
Job
judge.
here, you'd be on a bandwagon.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I totally get it. Definitely not here to call him out for that.
You're just an angsty teenager with back pain now.
You're not wrong.
Back pain and sores.
There was something that I thought was kind of interesting here, right? Because like while he's like sitting here despising his own life, he also says specifically that in verse 23, oh, that my words were written down, oh, that they were inscribed in a book. So he doesn't even want to be remembered, which I also understand. If you hate yourself that much and you think all your friends hate you, of course you don't want to be remembered. How will you be remembered?
Well, and he says, my intimate friends have failed me, and they're literally sitting there around him. Like, that was a shots fired moment.
Well, doesn't it say that his friends hate him, that his friends abhor him?
I think he claims
Aaron's
that.
translation said that they failed him, but
yeah, no, all my friends abhor me in 19. Yeah, all my friends abhor me.
Either
my
way,
bosom friend.
The Avoni, they detest me.
Yeah.
Either way, he's calling them out while they're standing there.
I like.
He's more like one of the. He's like I said, this is exactly where I am, right? Because even when I have close friends, I'm just like, you secretly hate me. Like it's exactly the same type of thing as that. That even the people who are trying to like show you that they care are really only like acting, like they don't really care.
It is
like,
really hard to care for someone who is determined that you are not allowed to care for them.
Exactly, which is why I stopped saying it to my friends' faces. So,
I do like how the JPS calls it bosom friends.
Bosom friends.
I mean, the Hebrew is interesting.
That's a different word for me.
How would you translate the Hebrew word separately? Let's say
Mete sodi. I mean, sodi could mean like secret. So derived from sod. Though apparently in the Bible it can also mean counsel, and mete is a word to refer to men specifically, because we've seen a lot of times the metim could refer to men, male or men.
Okay.
In the Bible, so like
women.
Men of my
so the
counsel.
first woman is called chaya, meaning life, and men are met, are death.
I mean,
they're not wrong.
I don't think. I mean,
I know.
There is a Syrian.
They're probably not related.
Yeah.
All life comes from women, and I'm not saying all death comes from men, but if you look at the murder rate, I'm just saying it's not an even split.
Though we do have
Steinsaltz has a translation of confidant, which makes sense with the idea of like people of secret, my secrets, like the people of my secrets, my confidence.
Yeah.
Wait, not confident. You have to say confidant for some reason.
Yes, a confidant.
Confidant.
But a close and intimate friend who you trust is a rare and precious thing, but when they fail you, it hurts a lot. But even still, the second half of this, he's still declaring faith in God. And I know in Christianity, that was absolutely what they wanted to focus on. Look, all of this he goes through and he still believes and he still trusts in the goodness of God. And he still affirms that he will see God because he knows that he's right and that God is still just, even though nothing God has done this far has been anything like just in any sense. This is very much, they try very hard to pretend that it's not, but it's very much a case of might makes right. God is just because he's the one who can kill you if you say otherwise. Treason never prospers. What's the reason? If it prosper, none dare call it treason. the person who is the strongest writes the story, and in their story, they are the hero no matter what. And here, God, he affirms God's virtue and that he will be justified, and that he will see God in the flesh and all the rest of it. I mean, obviously, I was taught to take that in the Christian way of, just senseless faith in God, and then he will be redeemed, and obviously, see God in the flesh, whatnot. But yeah, the whole thing just gives me such a disgusting feeling now, looking back at it, because we were taught, though he slay me, yet I will have trust in him. The story I told when the first episode, when Chrissy was here, of the author of the hymn, "It Is Well With My Soul," and how he wrote about his continuing faith in God while standing where his children died. Like, that's what they want of you. They want everything, not just your love or your fealty, but for you to put your version of the perfection and goodness of God above all other loves and loyalties and the reality in every sense, both rational and emotional. And it's just so abusive and vile, and I hate it. To the depths of my soul, I hate it.
I see a
I feel
comment,
like you want to say something, Aaron.
Ben One Eye offers 25 Ronnies, whatever those are.
Romanian lay. We've been over this already, Aaron.
I know. So the moral of this chapter is someone needs to get Job a breath mint.
I do like the thing in the what was it, verse 20? 17. It literally says my wind or my spirit is strange to my wife. The word ruchi is an interesting one.
Depending on the usage of the term wind, your wind may always be noxious to your wife. But
I mean, it could also be my odor. Some things
he's covered in sores and sitting on a dung heap. Nobody smells good at that moment.
Yeah, be like my spirit.
Yeah, my spirit can also be read as that.
Strange.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and yes, you're right, guys. Stockholm Syndrome is an absolutely amazing song. Great and squared. Very good. I have the album.
Someone said RON is Republic of North Carolina. So it's North Carolina. North Carolingian dollars, or whatever you want to call it.
Oh, never know.
I mean, the translations, like the other translations, are a bit more subdued. I mean, Septuagint has, "I also repeatedly implored my wife, and using flattery, I kept summoning sons of my concubines." And Targum just, "I am a stranger to my wife."
Yeah,
Sons
it
of
never.
My concubine.
Sons of my concubines. I mean, the Hebrew here is to the sons of my womb, of my belly, which is reference to the sons of my womb, with the womb being his wife's womb.
Okay,
or the sons
so
of my
why
belly.
Concubine?
I have no idea. Ask the Septuagint translators. Oh wait, we can't.
More like neutral. But okay.
I mean, he says maidservants specifically. And maidservants could certainly be concubines, though not exclusively. Yeah. Obviously, someone had to do other things. But yeah, it never says that Job had those, but it doesn't say he didn't either.
Yeah. Yeah. So
I did have to wonder what was meant by when he said "my female servants."
Yeah, I think that interpretation may depend very much on who's reading it and what their idea of the most righteous man is, because the patriarchs had concubines. Do you consider that they were a snare, or that they were an expression of the bountiful progeny that God had blessed them with? Depending on who's talking when, you're going to take that in two different ways.
Yeah. I mean, it's generally it's seen as like my siblings. or those with me in my mother's womb. But there are different interpretations. Gersonides says it refers to other children that he sired since his first set of children died, and the Trani and Sforno say that this refers to his grandchildren. Rashi says that these are those whom Job raised in his house as if they were his own, etc.
Okay, you said that you said that this chapter is known for verse 25 because it has the Redeemer, my Redeemer.
Yes. My Redeemer.
Although Aaron's translation, also JPS translates it as Vindicator. I don't know if the word Vindicator works for Jesus.
Yeah, so
this
one I did want to bring up some commentary on this one as well, but I figured we should wait until Tomer gets to that point. But yeah, there is quite a bit to talk about for here.
Yeah.
They use this text in the Messiah. They do. I know that
Handel?
my Redeemer liveth.
Is that a culture reference we should know?
Yeah,
not
Handel's
you.
Messiah is so fucking obscure.
Why? What? Never heard of it.
Jail. You uncultured Philistine.
I prefer uncultured swine.
Well, yes. I wouldn't wish to insult the swine.
Okay, I'll start.
And you can't be both because they wouldn't eat pork, probably.
I think the swine have endured enough insults being compared to the tangerine tyrant.
True.
Okay,
True.
I'll start with verse 3. 10 times now you have reproached me. Hebrew for 10 times is Eser Pa'amim. Many traditionals like Sa'ad Gaon, Rashi, Rashbam, Kara, and Kimchi understood the figure literally and refers to the speeches so far, 5 by Job and 5 by his friends. Others, like Ibn Ezra and the Commentaries, took the number figuratively. Compare JPS time and again. Clines, citing Delitzsch, writes that 10 is the number of human possibility, being the number of fingers on the human hand. Hakham writes that the two interpretations are not necessarily contradictory. 10 does mean a large number, but at the same time, Job is hinting that 10 speeches have already been given, yet his companions have not changed their minds, nor has he changed them. Septuagint reads, "Know only that the Lord did this to me," which Seow takes as corrupt, anticipating Deu epoki Eloha in verse 6. On verses 4 and 5, Habel notes that Job is not confessing to a sin here, which might have provoked his afflictions, since he maintains his innocence elsewhere, in 921, 10:7, and 16:17. Neither is he addressing God, according to Pope. Rather, he speaks sarcastically to his friends. If he has committed a mistake, it is a matter between him and God, and not their concern. His issue is with God, who, for Job, is the adversary who has made him appear guilty. Job's sarcasm includes a tongue-in-cheek admission that his friends are superior, hefil of Gadal, to him. They act as if they are God themselves by pursuing Job, as is seen in verse 22. They argue the case, yakach, hefil of yakach, to justify Job's condition. Job's friends try to rationalize rather than sympathize, since for them, sin is the necessary cause of Job's condition.
Rimmer's Brigery says, Lilith, is this an episode of Songs of Praise?
Dishonor on your bribery. That is, Songs of Praise has never had music that good. You've clearly never been to a Messiah. Almost enough to make me forgive Christianity. It's not, but it's close.
I thought Songs of Praise is like a BBC show.
No, I think the BBC may pipe it in from somewhere in the Bible Belt.
Oh, really?
I don't know.
No, it's actually a BBC show.
Oh, is it really? Okay.
Yeah, I think they just play
Songs of Praise with some, because there's so much
maybe there's
Christian rip-off media in the States that I just get sick of.
That's what I'm thinking. Like, I imagine the BBC Songs of Praise do play Handel, but.
Well, I do hear that the BBC is getting more and more popular in the United States, so you'd never know.
Well, you guys don't have any real news anymore, so.
Yeah.
Well, I had
a lot of big black.
I was gonna say
Commissions.
Trump is. I heard Trump is scared of BBC, so
Yeah, that's also what I heard. Yeah.
and BBW, but whatever.
He's a chicken shit. He's scared of everything.
Yeah, I guess. Okay, on verse 8, Hartley comments, quote, Job feels that God has built such a high wall across the way that he was taking that there is no way for him to get through. To use another metaphor, God has shrouded Job's paths with darkness so dense that he cannot find his way. Compare Lamentations 3, 2, and 6. This darkness conceals all avenues of escape. There is a strong note of irony in Job's phrasing his complaint in this way. In the prologue, the Satan argued that Job's faith was not real, for God had protected Job and his holdings by enclosing them with a hedge in 110. But now that God has removed that hedge to allow this Satan to test Job, Job sees things inside out. He fears that God has built up a wall around him to keep his cries for help from escaping and any assistance from entering. Even though he looks to God for deliverance, God in turn appears to treat him with unprovoked enmity. As a result, Job receives neither answers to his earnest prayer as to why he is suffering, nor any relief from his persistent pain. Job is expressing his deep inner struggle caused by the conflict between his dreadful circumstances and his faith in God.
Did you say hedge?
Hedge.
Or henge?
Hedge.
Hedge.
Like as in like the tree?
Like a wall. Like a hedge wall. Like a...
As a hedge fund.
Ah.
No.
There's another word, henge. I was wondering if maybe it was using that word.
Stonehenge.
Yeah, like Stonehenge. Yeah.
Stonehenge. No, it's hedge.
Okay.
That's what he uses.
Interesting.
Okay, on verse 10, Seow writes that the language of tearing down in verse 10a supports two metaphors. One, the idiom to tear around suggests the destruction of a city's encircling walls, as we see in Jeremiah 39:8, 52:14, 2 Kings 25:10, and 2 Chronicles 36:19. Job uses this metaphor as a hyperbole for the divine attack on him. The line, I am gone, elach, may refer to the departure of captives, as we see in Lamentations 1, 5, and 18, from the breached wall, or it may be euphemistic for death. 2. Psalms 52:7, which is 5, shows that the verb to tear down can describe uprooting a plant. So the parallel line in verse 10b refers to uprooting hope. The term nasa may refer to the removal of city gates and gate posts, as we see in Judges 16:3. Seow also notes that in 14:7-14 and 18:19, Job contrasts the persistent tree-like hope with the fragile human hope. Here, however, even tree-like hope can be eliminated, not by cutting down, which would allow its regeneration, but by eradication.
Yeah, and note to flat earthers, Nasa doesn't mean deceive. Yeah, there's like a conspiracy theory of like NASA is the Hebrew word meaning that means deceiving. But it's Nasa, as you just saw, it means more like carry or whatever. But I think there is a word that is like Nasha. That
what is it?
Nosha, which means deceive. But yeah,
It's not in this chapter, right?
No. This you just mentioned Nasa.
Ah, yeah.
But there is a word. I think there is a jastro in like if you look in like Jastra or whatnot. Is it Jastra? Whatever.
Yasa. Oh, it's in some Yasa. Yeah.
What Yasa?
No, it's here. It's Yasa.
Yeah, over here it's
in verse
Yasa,
10.
but yeah, the actual.
I'm going to get more coffee.
Yeah. But there is a word Nasha, which means deceiving or something, but it's got nothing to do with NASA, obviously.
Yeah, of course. I hate it. Okay, on 12. Clines notes that the last word of the verse, my tent, in Hebrew ohali, reveals the irony in Job's depiction. God's army has attacked Job's lonely tent, emphasizing God's disproportionate treatment of Job. Habel even calls it, quote, a bitter example of divine overkill, end quote. While some commentators like Forer suggested that the troops, in Hebrew Dudim, refers to personified powers that bring disaster, or as demons of disease, Clines writes that these troops are a metaphor of God as warrior and assailant. In 16:12-14, God is depicted as attacking on a lone person, but here Job depicts himself as a city under siege, whose troops built a rampart to bring battering rams. The unexpectedness of the last word, my tent, has led some commentators to conclude that it is a mistake, and thus delete they have built a rampart against me, according to Hautzma, Forer, Hesse, and NEB, noting that the phrase occurs again in a variant form at 3012. Others, however, suppose that a colon more suitable to the image of the tent has been lost immediately after the troublesome phrase, according to Dam and Horscher, or after the reference to the tent, according to Merckx. Still others see here a reference to Bedouin Ghazwas, according to Winkler. Clines, however, writes that none of these proposals are necessary once we recognize that disproportion is the point. He writes that there is the, quote, grimmest of humor here, end quote.
My favorite Jewish comedy, Book of Job. Yeah.
Yeah. On 13 through 16, Habel comments, quote, Job turns his attention from the siege of the enemy without to the alienation and betrayal of the community within. His friends and family have no empathy with his deep anguish. By opening with an accusation that God has provoked the alienation of his kin, in 13a, Job implies that the sequence of rejections which follow are ultimately caused by God's unjustified afflictions. Perhaps the most cruel indignity is found in the ironic portrait of Job's relations with his servant, in verse 16. He summons Kara, but gets no answer, Ani, and must therefore degrade himself by meekly entreating Hanan. Job expected the same frustrating experience with his God, as we see in 9:14 through 16. Because God would not answer as a normal adversary at law, Job would be obliged to entreat his accuser for mercy. Job is a man without an answer, be it from God, from heaven, from his friends, or from his own kin. Even his servant does not answer. He stands alone, alienated from all in heaven and earth. On verse 17, my breath... Sorry, I see Isaac smiles and I'm like, what? Something funny to you, Isaac?
Yeah, the reason... I was thinking maybe the reason why he smells bad is because of that previous comment that you said about the missing colon.
Gross.
Have you seen those?
Speaking of which,
have you seen those the like posts by people who don't know how to spell cologne?
Yeah.
Like, oh, when he walks by and I smell his colon.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Okay.
Where did everyone go?
That's a
where
good
did
question.
you go? That's the question.
Where did you go?
I told you I was grabbing more coffee.
Really, only Isaac and I were here for the whole thing.
Excuse me?
Well, yeah, I saw you walk up and go somewhere for a second.
I just grabbed the tissue.
Wow. So should you have those next to your desk? Come on, don't.
I can neither confirm nor deny. Okay, verse 17, speaking of, my breath is offensive to my wife. In the Masoretic text reads, Ruchi zara leishti. The word ruchi is usually taken to mean my breath, as we see in Vulgate, Rashbam, Hartley, and NEB, and has been traditionally understood to mean that Job's bad breath has caused him to become repulsive to his wife. Seow notes that some commentators regarded the bad breath as a symptom of Job's illness, and serves a clue to the diagnosis of his disease. He notes that some have suggested reading my odor, according to Beer and Ball. However, he notes that according to Meyuchas, the ruach refers to a mindset or spiritual makeup, a sense discernible in 6:5, imadi, with me, and 7:11, nafshi, my person. Thus, Job means that his wife, who should know him intimately, does not understand him or recognize him for who he is. This reading is supported by Targum and Peshita, and Nachmanides and Hakham, who renders my feelings. Clines takes ruach to refer to Job's life, i.e. his continued existence, that his closest relatives find repugnant, for they must be suffering guilt by association with him so long as he lives. Tur-Sinai writes that Ruchi is parallel with Vachanoti in the second stitch, which he takes as referring to sighing. Thus, he takes Ruchi as my sigh, i.e., even Job's sighing is strange to his wife.
Once again, Job's wife only exists for how she treats Job and how she responds to his crisis of faith. There's absolutely no mention of the fact that she might be a little upset since she just buried her fucking children.
Don't worry, they get better children.
Yeah, because if your baby dies, you just need a prettier one, and that makes it all better.
Yep. Yep.
It's so much better than my old defective children.
I swear to God, it's like it's narcissism 101. Yeah. People are objects.
Yeah, they will are objects. Let's finish there.
I guess you could make an argument like with Christians and be like, you see, look at Job. Like, you can see that God doesn't have a problem with abortion as long as you get like a puppy or something to replace it.
Puppies are very cute, so are kitties.
As long as it's better than a child. So.
Yeah. Oh, there is an interesting thing here that Clines notes, that there perhaps a parallel can be drawn with lines in the Egyptian text known as a dispute over suicide, Anet 405-7, addressing his soul who resists death. The suicidal man says that if he follows the soul's advice, his name will reek more than the stench of bird droppings, more than a fish handler on the day of the catch when the sun is hot, more than the stench of crocodiles, more than a married woman against whom a false accusation of adultery has been made, more than a boy of whom it is whispered that he is the child of his father's rival.
What?
Don't you love ancient literature?
The married woman who's accused of adultery is because she has the potion, right?
I have no idea.
I think it's just a stench, like the idea of your reputation is destroyed, so you're a metaphorical stench in the nostrils. Or possibly they'll just fling shit at her because they always treat women so well.
I don't think that's any kind of reference to Numbers 5, Isaac.
Oh, okay.
No, but they had because a lot of cultures, Greece especially, had this idea of like this miasma, right? Where it's like it's kind of like, I mean, for them they used it for diseases too, but like there's this kind of aura to it, right? Like if like in Rome, if someone had been like a slave previously, even if they were a citizen now, they still carried like that stench, quote unquote, of being a slave. So they were still often treated poorly, even though they are legally citizens. So like in Greece, they would have a similar thing where it's like, if I mean, even in like Leviticus and Deuteronomy, we kind of see stuff like this too, where if someone had done something bad or accused of doing something bad, someone that's in bad standing has this, like, even if they didn't really do something bad, they have this like aura about them, and that kind of permeates through a lot of ancient cultures.
And I mean, accusations do cling to a person. The court of public opinion is very powerful. And we've seen cases where someone was accused of something and then it was later, doubt was cast on it. And that sort of, it still followed them for a long time. And that's, it's not literally a stench, but the metaphor is not inappropriate.
Okay, on 20, Seow notes that there is a textual issue with this verse, which literally reads, "By my skin and by my flesh my skeleton clung." Many commentators doubt if the text has been preserved intact. The sense that one expects is, "I am nothing but skin and bones," according to TNIV. And accordingly, Job is talking about an emaciated body, is 16:8. The image has also been interpreted as one of inner decay. Thus, NJB reads, "My flesh is rotting under my skin." A similar complaint is found in Ludlul Bel Nemeki, quote, "My flesh is waste, my blood has run dry, my bones are loose, covered only with skin, my tissues are inflamed, afflicted with gangrene," end quote. Later on, the sufferer goes on to speak of his body's disintegration. Quote, "From breaking down, my joints are separated, my limbs are splayed and pushed apart." End quote. Seow further writes, quote, "Verse 20a may similarly be understood to depict the disintegration of Job. His skeleton hangs together only by the flimsy tissue of skin and flesh. Yet Job is not merely describing his physical appearance. Rather, as elsewhere in the book, the disintegration or distortion of the human body is a metaphor for one's shattered state. So in 1613, the ruptured gallbladder is not a physical condition, but a metaphor for the bitterness of Job's being. This embodiment is a metaphor for the loss of personal wholeness, integrity. In this sense, verse 20 is related to the preceding verses. The absence of friends and relations and the deprivation of human intimacy have thoroughly destroyed Job's sense of self and caused him to fall apart completely. Alienation from one's familial setting and from one's community has been experienced as a loss of cohesion in every sense of the term. Disintegration has affected the very core of Job's being."
If you've ever watched someone die, the imagery is not unfamiliar.
On 21 through 22, Habel writes that Job's appeal to his friends for compassion is sarcastic. His friends or relatives are unemphatic towards Job, and he is abhorred by all. His friends justify his disgrace rather than sympathize his cause in verse 5. The emphatic "you are my friends" highlights their failure to act as friends. Job uses tongue-in-cheek language to ask for sympathy, not because of his appearance, but because he was struck by the hand, quote-unquote, of God. The divine hand is the symbol of God's unwarranted afflictions, as we see in 1:11 and 2:5, his overwhelming destructive power in 6:9 and 12:9, and his relentless dominion of Job's life in 10:7 and 13:21. Those who are struck by God's hand are regularly scorned. Job's friends act as his enemies and, like God, pursue, radaf, Job relentlessly. Job has accused God of pursuing him, even though he was insignificant like dry chaff in 13:25. The flesh motif returns to the theme of God as the hunter, with the friends as his scavengers, as we see in 16:9 and 10. They hound Job like, quote, "El, the savage celestial beast," end quote. Habel writes, quote, "They are never satisfied with their pound of flesh, but display an insatiable appetite for abusing this mutilated mortal," end quote.
That thing about being struck by the hand of God reminds me of an imperial stout that I had in Kamloops, Canada. Backhand of God.
Yes, I've had that. It was so good. Hatfield's chocolate.
We went to a conference in Vancouver, and I made arrangements that a keg of Backhand of God could be brought to the convention, and there's a picture of me and Richard Dawkins toasting with it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've always wanted to be able to walk into a bar and say, "Give me a pint of the Backhand of God." I mean, just the aura points alone on that one. Come on.
Children until he got one he was attracted to.
Ew, God. Oh.
Yeah.
Wait, Baron?
I know Barron was the joke is kind of ruined in the fact that Barron is younger, but he's catching up. He's already facing criminal charges.
Of course he is.
Yeah. And then Jojo Freelancer KUP has this question: are there traditions that say that Job got his family, slaves, and cattle back, like going back to life?
Yeah.
We need to check the last chapter. I think it states, right?
Yeah, I think so, right?
Yeah, they definitely have traditions. I think he's asking because in the Quran it says it explicitly, and that could be down to, like it was written a lot later, and people actually thought about, wait, this doesn't sound right, so let's just add a word that makes it sound a little bit better.
Whether they came back to life.
That's the part, because I always assumed he just got more, because it's not like they were the only camels in the world or cattle, or
I mean, think about it. When a child's pet hamster dies, the parents just get them a new one. They don't know, so God could have just made new children and just said they're the same. Like they're
the
clones,
narcissistic piece of shit writing this. Apparently, I'm sure there's no difference.
Like to Job, he got his children back, but the people that died, they still died. Doesn't make it better.
No, and I don't really see in this chapter anything about him rising, the slaves
not
rising.
This chapter,
not this chapter, and not 42, the last chapter. Okay, where was I? Yes, 25. Habel calls verse 25, quote, probably the most celebrated in the book of Job, end quote. The identity of the Redeemer, in Hebrew, Go'ali, why does it give me? Yes. Just checking. Yes, Go'ali has been heavily debated ever since antiquity. The most common traditional interpretation is that the Redeemer is God, with many Christians identifying the Redeemer as Jesus. Habel, however, writes, quote, a major argument against viewing God as the Goel is that it would mean a complete reversal in the pattern of Job's thought to date, a pattern which also persists after this famous cry of hope. Job has portrayed God consistently as his attacker, not his defender, his enemy, not his friend, his adversary at law, not his advocate, his hunter, nor his healer, his spy, not his savior, an intimidating terror, not an impartial judge. In subsequent speeches, Job continues to be overwhelmed at the anticipated appearance of God's terrifying face, quote-unquote, in 23:14-17. He identifies God as his accuser and adversary at law to the very end, in 31:35-37, end quote. Habel suggested that the Redeemer is a member of the divine council, who functions as a counterforce to the adversary. Sa'ad Gaon and Ibn Ezra wrote that this is a human who will eventually believe Job's innocence. Seow notes that Williams suggested that the Redeemer is Baal, and Mueller suggested it was a personal deity, as in the Babylonian theodicy. Clines wrote that the Redeemer is Job's cry in heaven in 16:19-20. Seow notes some other options. The Redeemer is Job's cry from the ground in 16:18, according to Bucamp, an accuser of God alongside Job, according to Magdalene, a pseudo-divine being imagined by the poet as, quote, a counter-deity to oppose the real deity, end quote, according to Zuckerman, or nobody in particular, just testing of a hypothesis, according to Wilson. Hartley, who retains the traditional view, writes that the title Redeemer had a special place in Israel's confessional theology. Thus, the author's choice of this term for Job is an intentional allusion to the special nuances of deliverance and love that are associated with this title for God, end quote. Tur-Sinai writes that Job proclaims his demand and hope, which alone is of importance to him, that he might meet his God in a fair debate in his own lifetime. He notes that my Redeemer is not a term of praise as my rock and Redeemer in Psalms 19:13. And Seow comments, quote, Job's allusion to God's forsaken role is enhanced by reference to the Redeemer's living nature. For Go'ali Chai, my Redeemer lives, or my living Redeemer, is reminiscent of the divine epithet, the living God, as we see in Deuteronomy 5:26, Joshua 3:10, 1 Samuel 17:26 and 36, etc. This epithet may have had its origins in polemics against Baal. Whereas Baal is supposed to die only to live again, the Israelites do not admit the possibility of a dying God, see Habakkuk 1:12, but call theirs the living God. People know, yada, that theirs is the living God when they witness in some way the manifestation of divine power, as through the defeat of their enemies, as we see in Joshua 3:10 and 11. Hence, precisely in the face of overwhelming power by enemies, Yahweh is called the living God in 1 Samuel 17:26 and 36, 2 Kings 19 verses 4 and 16, aka Isaiah 37:4 and 17. A subtle reminder to the deity of what is at stake theologically when God does not intervene in the face of chaos and death.
So I would say that I think the interpretation of this being like another member of the divine council would make a lot more sense. So like the term Goel, right? It's also used for the Redeemer in the blood feud, right?
Yes.
So, but I don't think that's the definition that's being used here, because it does use there are other usages of it. But like as was pointed out, this can't really be God, because God's always the asshole here. I mean, he's like, God is the one that is standing against him.
He is an asshole.
I know. So, and I'm going to quote here from Marvin Pope, his commentary, and I think, Aaron, that you're going to like what he has to say here. It is certain that here Job does not have in mind a human agent who will act as his vindicator. And then he goes on to say that the difficulty may be alleviated by, and the difficulty being of the interpretation of this as God, the Goel as God. The difficulty may be alleviated by understanding the term Goel here to refer to the agent elsewhere termed as a mediator and a witness, who is to serve the same function as the personal God of Sumerian theology, i.e., act as his advocate and defender in the assembly of the gods. So I think that is probably the most likely explanation, because while he has Satan, he wouldn't really be. It's not like he's super aware of Satan's actions in particular, but him identifying those actions with God is already enough to him to be like, well, God himself is against me. So now he needs a defender. He needs someone on his side instead of someone against him. So this
Satan
is like the counter deity. That
so there's a panel of gods, and he needs a divine attorney.
Champion.
Yes. Yeah, he needs a divine attorney. Yes.
Okay. It's giving a bit of because he may not have been specifically aware of Satan as a character, but the role of, obviously someone has brought accusation before God against me. So, if I'm going to have a prosecuting attorney, I should also have a defense attorney.
Yeah, something like that. We like, the thing is, it's hard to put them into modern terms, right? Because they're not.
That's the closest I would get.
But it's very close. It is close to what we're talking about. Yes.
Yeah.
I got a couple of the comments here. Sable Eagle says, brew York Empress Toncoco, Tonka bean, vanilla, and coconut imperial milk stout. 10.6% ABV. If the panel come to New York, I'll buy a round for them at the brewery tap. Thank you.
I would never drink stout.
If I went to New York, though, I would probably
Aaron had me try it once. Disgusting.
If I went to New York, though, I would probably go to Evil Twin, because they make
Lawrence,
they make some good
like?
stuff.
Is there something you like?
Being right?
Yes, I like rum and lots of it.
Yeah, well, coincidentally.
Yeah, see, perfect. Love it.
My God. My God, why have you forsaken me?
Breakfast of Champions.
Yeah. And finally, 28 and 29, Hartley notes that Job warns his friends about the responsibility that goes along with the instruction, not resurrection. He anticipates the blindness to the way they are pursuing him by arguing that the cause of his troubles comes from himself. Job then quotes their position in order to penetrate their blindness. He warns that they are committing iniquities worthy of punishment by the sword being a symbol of the blows inflicted by God against his enemies. After God strikes them down, they will have to stand before a judgment and will be held accountable for the ways they have counseled Job and the lack of compassion they have shown to him.
Got another comment from Bruno Zeigert's 6379, who offers $5 Californian, and says, maybe it should be the livid God.
He does spend a lot of time raging for no fucking reason.
An all-powerful deity would probably be pretty secure.
Yeah.
Confident, that sort of thing.
But I do have a question for you guys. Not even really a question. I want you guys to help me with something. I want you to guess who's talking about Jesus.
Oh, let's say Augustine this time.
Guess who's talking about Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. Guess who's talking about Jesus? It's the ancient Christians again. So, who do we have here? So, I found that Gregory has... Oh, yes. Gregory speaks about... No, that's... Sorry, that's the wrong chapter. Where was it? Oh, yes. At the same time, about chapter 19, Job's suffering prefigures Christ's passion, according to Sikias, and announced the Christian message that will be received by the Gentiles and refused by the Jews, according to Gregory.
Yep.
Why is Jesus so passionate about suffering?
Because it's a masochist.
That's funny.
The
passion narrative, yeah. Because
the passion of Jesus. This is the passion of Jesus. Like,
I mean, let's face it. Christianity in practice is usually a masochistic fetish,
which is not necessarily bad.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to do
it
a
is
debate
if you impose it on children and have no concept of consent or safe words.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to do a debate soon on is Christianity logical?
Are you talking to a Trinitarian?
Yeah, because
this guy,
I was going to say,
this guy asked me. He just wanted to promote his channel, and he wanted to get into debates and stuff like that. And I said, just set one up. Do it. You got a YouTube channel. Set up a debate with somebody. Falcor, what are you doing?
I mean,
giant dogs not fit down there.
Obviously, Christianity is logical. Jesus is the logos.
Considering that topic, you can post it as a short.
I mean, I've heard this thing that logic comes from God or something like that. That without Christianity there is no logic or something stupid like that.
Yeah.
Aristotle existed before Christianity.
Presuppositionalists is the point. Where they presume that you can't have logic without some being that makes those rules stable
logic
or something
function.
like that. Yeah.
And it can't be physical reality that is just existing and stable more or less in its existence. It has to be a person and also their particular person that they imagine. It's back from the time when Christianity could be regarded you had to regard Christianity as a priori true. And then you just take it from there. And then everybody assumes on that basis that, obviously it all comes from God. But yeah, if they're Trinitarians, may I suggest that point you really liked that I made that one time about how the Trinity is a direct contradiction of the first rule of logic, the rule of non-contradiction, that a thing cannot be both A and not A. And
That's
thus...
second law of logic, but okay.
Second law of logic, sorry. But... shut up. But the point is, it's a direct contradiction of one of the most fundamental laws of logic, and it's apparently necessary unto salvation to believe it, according to most variants of Christianity. So,
and obviously, a design needs a designer, and logic needs a logistician, i.e., Tomer is God.
And reality requires a realtor.
Arn, if there's a really fun argument.
I decree that everyone should read one chapter of Chronicles each day.
Horrible God, this one is. So, Arn, if you want, I can send you a very fun argument, a logical argument, proving that God is not God. If we take the Trinitarian, the traditional Trinitarian view, So I'll send you that, but it is a fun one.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I will come through.
Savaot.
When this guy wanted to set this up, I'm like,
Shaddai.
okay, I'll join in because it just sounds like a bit of fun. I could do. And he says, well, what topic should we debate on? I'm like, oh, let them pick, suggest some topics, because I've noticed the believers will choose things that are so easy for me to win. I would have never considered it. And I have to think that when you mentioned it, that the idea that they're going to argue that somehow logic can't exist unless you're Christian, that's going to be an interesting take.
It's more of imagining God as a necessary foundational character, whether you believe in him or not. Yeah. It's like people who refused the idea of a round earth, because where would the foundations go? What would it be resting on? It's basically the logical version of that. They just, The
one nice thing was that the guy said
how's it just floating there?
The guy said that he had it was going to be two, me and this other person doing a debate against two other people. Okay, fine. And I said, there's only like a couple of people that I just flat out won't do a debate with. That's like, Stooping for Lies and Darth Dawkins, because those are both just fucking trolls, don't deserve any attention. Virtually anybody else except, Kent Hovind. I'm done with Kent Hovind. He's had his chances. But anyway, this guy says he says he got a couple of other people to debate with. And then when he mentioned me, he said they looked me up and they both quit. So he had to go find new people.
How many debates have you won because people ran away screaming at the fact that you can string an idea together coherently and are not intimidated by their faith?
I only know of one that I actually closed the debate without ever even showing up. Because
that was the first debate, right?
Well, it would have been my first debate, I think, my first formal debate. When they wanted to take me to East Texas, I think Nacogdoches, something like that. They wanted to set me up at some college there to debate some theologians, and what I kept getting was that they've gone through pastor after pastor after pastor, and all of them were refusing. When they would look me up, see who I was, and all of them refuse. And they finally got some guy from England, some really old theologian from England. Why are they having him debate in Nacogdoches, Texas? Fuck if I know, but it was the only one that they would accept. Except that by then, the venue changed. It was going to be in a church. But after they lost 5 or 6 champions for their side, because they all bowed out because it was me, then the church said, you know what? We shouldn't do this debate here. This debate should be somewhere else. And so they just closed the whole event.
Oh my God. Well, that sounds about right. I mean,
you know what? I don't think it was a church. I think it was a school. It was hosted by a church, but it was going to be done at a high school. And that's when they used the excuse that the high school is a public school and we really can't have a religious art. Really? How many of your champions had to fold before you realized secular? Yeah.
It's tactical, convenient secularism.
Yeah.
There's another comment.
The Atheist Carpenter says, Aaron is the white bunny in the cave of debates. Like a reference to the Vorpal bunny.
So I have more Christians.
You have more
pointy teeth.
Yes, I do.
Look at the bones.
So, in the second part of Job's speech, the prophetic aspect of his words prevails. According to the interpretation of the fathers, Job declares the truth, according to Julian, and announces the advent of Christ, his judgment, and the resurrection of the body, according to Ephraim, Chrysostom, and Gregory. Job, and here Lawrence does his classical facepalm, I guess. Job here anticipates the later teaching of the resurrection, according to Chrysostom. Those who are behaving badly do not grasp the coming judgment, according to Gregory. So, be naughty boys, kids.
All right, then. Are we ready to move on to 20?
Please. I beg.
Yes.
I beg.
Very
Plead.
good. Who wants to read this one?
I can take this one.
Thank you, sir.
Then Zophar, the Naamathite, answered, "Listen, my thoughts urge me to answer because of the agitation within me. I hear censure that insults me, and a spirit beyond my understanding answers me. Do you not? Oh, I bet that's the Holy Spirit, guys. Do you,
Lawrence? I
Maybe
know
it's
that you've
Jesus.
watched so much wrestling that you should be reading this differently. Listen,
okay, fine.
my
fine.
thoughts urge me to answer because of the agitation within
Okay,
me.
okay, fine.
I
Hold up.
hear censure that insults me.
Yes, I agree. You are absolutely right, Arn. You are absolutely right. Okay, I'm gonna let's try to go for the Macho Man. Do you not know this from of old, ever since mortals were placed on earth, that the exulting of the wicked is short, and the joy of the godless is but for a moment? Even though they mount up high as the heavens, and their head reaches to the clouds, they will perish forever, like their own dung. Those who have seen them will say, "Where are they?" They will fly away like a dream and not be found. They will be chased away like a vision of the night. The eye that saw them will see them no more, nor will their place behold any longer.
Behold!
Their children will seek the favor of the poor, and their hands will give back their wealth. Their bodies, once full of youth, will lie down in the dust with them. Though wickedness is sweet in their mouth, they hide it under their tongues, though they are loath to let it go and hold it in their mouths. Yet their food is turned in their stomachs. It is the venom of asps within them. Ooh, yeah. They swallow down riches and vomit up again. God cast them out of their bellies. They will suck the poison of asp. The tongue of the viper will kill them. They will not look on the rivers. There's the streams flowing with honey and curds. They will give back the fruit of their toil and will swallow it down. From the profit of their trading, they will get no enjoyment, for they have crushed and abandoned the poor. They have seized a house that they did not build, for they knew no quiet in their bellies. In their greed, they let nothing escape. Oh, yeah. There was nothing left after they had eaten. Therefore, their prosperity will not endure. In full sufficiency, they will be in distress. All the force of misery will come upon them to fill their belly to the full. God will send his fierce anger into them and rain it upon them as their food. They will flee from an iron weapon. A bronze arrow will strike them through. It is drawn forth and comes out of their body, and the glittering point comes out of their gall. Terrors come upon them. Utter darkness is laid up for their treasures. A fire fanned by no one will devour them. What is left in their tent will be consumed. The heavens will reveal their iniquity, and the earth will rise up against them. The possessions of their house will be carried away. Oh, yeah. Dragged off in the day of God's wrath. This is the portion of the wicked from God, the heritage decreed for them by God.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Wait, you can't say that. You're going to get sued.
Thank you, Lawrence. That was brilliant. I was feeling it all the way.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, these voices will be useful when we get to Psalms, probably.
Got a couple more comments. Shut up, Matt says, Aaron, the missing / hitherto quadrant of Pascal's wager. If there's no God, then the suffering inflicted on the godless was futile. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jamie Wells, 777, says $10. Thank you very much. Lawrence, that was fucking gold, my friend. Oh, yeah. I was searching my table. Do I have a creamer here? Do I have a...
I really wish I had one. I would have just like tossed it and like brought it back somehow, and it would have been great.
All right. Any comments on this?
I'm sure.
I mean, yeah, like
I'm just taking note of a few things for a paper I'm writing here.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
I don't believe Zophar has spoken thus far. So, oh no, wait, he did. He was chapter 11. He's like, clearly he's taken great offense to being called out by Job as a shitty friend and a very poor comforter, which he is. So it's I've seen this a lot where people, the narrative that of their faith requires a certain thing to be the case, requires that if a certain kind of suffering is gone through, either, God has a good reason, so you must have brought it on yourself, or you're being prepared for something dramatic. There, maybe it's a limited number, but if your experiences do not fall into the narrative that they require, they'll just gaslight you and assume you're lying about your own mind, thoughts, and experiences. I've had ministers absolutely look at me like I was insane when I said I knew of people who had asked God for things with faith without, having done any of the things that would show lack of faith and, justify God not giving it to them, and that they still weren't answered. And they were like, looked at me like I had just claimed the sun rose in the west. It's when you have a narrative and you insist that reality must meet that narrative, and it doesn't, the absurdities and cruelties to follow, there is no limit. The limit does not exist.
Okay, so I'll start with verses 2 and 3. Habel comments, quote, Job's responses seem to have struck Zophar. Job had accused his friends of humiliating him, in 19:3, and had scorned their claims to wisdom in 12:2. The source of Zophar's humiliation, kelima, is apparently Job's rebuke, musar, in verse 3a. Eliphaz views the musar of God as a corrective discipline in 5:17. Elihu views it as a warning mechanism in 33:16. The specific rebuke or warning, in Hebrew musar, which insults Zophar, is probably the final comment of Job's previous speech. The friends can expect divine judgment for persecuting him without cause, as we've seen in 19, 22, 28, and 29. Job's provocative warning compels Zophar to express his thoughts, feelings, and discerning spirit. Compare 32, 7-9, and 18-20. Discernment, binah, is a synonym for wisdom, see on 28:12 and 38:4. Zophar claims to be speaking with the authority of his inner wisdom, as we see in verse 3b, as well as that of the ancient sapiential tradition behind him in verse 4a. On verses 4 and 5.
Also, the word musar, there is something called the Musar movement, which was like a non-Hasidic, Orthodox Jewish like, I don't know if it was a reaction to Hasidism, which is more like about spiritualism and like, you know, the simple people can connect to God even if they don't have the knowledge and intelligence, whether it's just, you know, like the simple man who says Psalms every day by heart because he can't read is like on a higher level than the scholar. Muslim movement is more like we need to go around and tell people that if they're bad, they will be punished. Kind of. It's kind of like hellfire preaching in a sense. I mean, at least maybe that's a very
Wasn't
negative
that
way of looking
lovely?
at it. But it was like,
Really
yeah, it was
needed
like an
more.
old, yeah. I think Salanta, Yisrael Salanta was like some guy started it, and it was, I don't know if it was like directly against the Hasidic movement, but definitely a lot of Hasidim see it as a very like, this is not the way things should be done. But yeah, it's like when we see people doing Musa, like giving, like speaking about how, you know, this community is evil and blah blah blah. They have to change their ways, otherwise God will punish them. Blah blah blah. Like that's seen as very, I don't know what the word is, but like
Bad for the Jews.
not necessarily bad for the Jews. It's more or less like that's how they do things. Like those Lithuanian Jews or whatever, like those German Jews, like the non-Hasidic ones. And it's like we don't agree with that. And then the Hasidic, they would probably say the same thing about Hasidic Jews and say like, oh, they're not taking it too seriously enough, and they're you know, whatever. They put too much emotion into their into the way they whatever.
I've observed this.
I mean,
in
nowadays
faith
they get
many
along much
times.
better, but it used to be
Life
pretty bad.
involves suffering, and religion has long tried to bring dignity and meaning to unendurable suffering that people have had to face. And there's actually a genuine virtue in that, a desire to give dignity to the downtrodden and the oppressed. But when that particular suffering is over, then everyone becomes a slave to the pro-suffering narrative, and it ends up begetting unnecessary suffering on top of it. It's just a vicious cycle.
Okay, on verses 4 and 5, Hartley notes that Seow begins his exposition with a rhetorical question. Its formulation implies that if Job denies the answer, he would effectively be saying that he denies the most honored teaching of the wise, which is true because of its great antiquity, going back to God's placing man on earth. Seow rebukes Job's statement of faith in God by stating that Job should know the ancient wisdom rather than his Redeemer living in 1925, which teaches that, quote, the mirth of the wicked is brief, end quote. The joy of the godless is hollow. Though they enjoy festivity, ranana, it is only for a brief moment. Seow argues that the punishment of the wicked is an integral part of the world order. Thus, it is unthinkable that there may be an exception to this mortal law. On verse 7, he will perish forever like his own dung. He before like his own dung is keglalo. Although this meaning is favored by Vulgate, Targum, and most traditionals, the language here seems odd, since, as Clines puts it, quote, human excrement is not notably perishable, end quote. He writes that the yes.
I've never noticed how long it takes for that to go bad.
He writes that yes. He writes that the reference could be to its noisomeness, comparable with the stench of a decaying body, though we would expect some picture of total destruction, readily supplied if we take the dung as the animal dung used as fuel. Likewise, Hakham writes that this figure of speech is taken from the ancient practice of using dung as fuel, as we see in Ezekiel 4:12, and that it also implies great contempt for the successful wicked man and for the evil king, who are compared to dung. He writes, quote, The point of the expression is that even if a wicked man's head reaches heaven, he still casts his dung on the earth. The entire being of the wicked man is no more important than his dung, and in the end he will perish with it." End quote. Seow, however, notes that human dung is used as fuel only in an extraordinary situation, and is considered defiling, as we see in Deuteronomy 23:15, which is 14. Instead, he writes that the dung is something repulsive, according to Sfono, and must be quickly removed, according to Loisy and Pope. Septuagint reads, "For just when he thinks he is firmly established," possibly reading kegdalo or begdalo. This meaning is favorable by Hartley, who renders "like his greatness." On verse 10, Clines writes that there is no satisfactory interpretation of this awkward verse The reference to the sinner's children seems out of place, since this section deals with the sinner's own destruction, with the children living on, and in a way perpetuate his name. Some scholars think that the verse is misplaced, with some transferring it to follow verse 19, according to Dorm and Terian, and others, like N.E.B. and Moffat, placing it after verse 11. Still, problems still remain. Quote, "If the text speaks of the restitution of stolen wealth by the children of the wrongdoer, who, may it be supposed, compels them to make amends, and why should this be regarded as such a bad thing? So both subject matter and the lack of connection of thought brand the line as doubtful, and no proposed conjectural emendation recommends itself." End quote. Clines notes two lines of interpretation. One, ratza means satisfy or make up for. And so we can translate, "his children will compensate the poor," according to Dorm, or "make amends to the poor," according to NIV. Thus, the second half of the line should mean that they return his wealth to those from whom he has stolen. 2. Take ratza as "seek the favor of," as seen in RSV, suggesting that the children of the wrongdoer, as the poorest of the poor, are reduced to begging their bread from the poor, as we see in NEB, NJPS, Driver Gray, and Forer. This is presumably because he has had to restore the property of the poor to them, so that there is nothing left for his children to inherit. Clines, however, rejects both interpretations, favoring to see that the father's act must precede the children's. Thus, the father's hands relinquish their strength. This, he argues, would fit well with verse 11. He writes that although the connective vav is used, the loss of the father's strength in death must be the cause of the children's needy state. And, quote, "His property is not at all in view here. They are in reduced circumstances just because he has prematurely perished." End quote.
It's interesting because of the idea that is espoused here, and I think was believed a lot more in those days, that children, at least as long as their father was alive, very much an extension of their parents. You know, you get the curse down to the third and fourth generation. You get the idea that the children of the wicked man will be destroyed because it destroys his progeny. It destroys his name and his line from continuing. It very much, they are not their own people. They are, they are their clan, their father, their progenitor. Yeah, it's a weird, it's very weird to us with a sort of more individual value system. But yeah, killing someone's children as vengeance against them to end their line so that they will have no name going forward is actually been a thing in a lot of human history.
On 12 through 14, Seow notes that, ironically, Job speaks of tasting bitterness, as we've seen 3:20, 7:11, 10:1, and 13:26, while Zophar speaks of the wicked tasting evil as sweet. The wrongdoer treats evil as something so delightful that he hides it under his tongue, implying at least a subconscious recognition of the wrongness of the act. He likes doing wrong so much that he retains it in his mouth. The author is using a metaphor for the tempting nature of wrong, much like the forbidden fruit, as we see in Genesis 3:6, or stolen water that is sweet, a metaphor for illicit pleasure in Proverbs 9:17. Though they seem savory, they eventually become toxic and may turn out to be sickening in one's bowels, even poisonous like snake venom. This is emphasized by the contrast between sweetness and gall, meorah, in verse 14a. We can also compare it with Proverbs 23:31-32, where wine that goes down smoothly may in the end be as harmful as a serpent.
Tastes as sweet as sin.
It's kind of funny because the lure of the forbidden is part of the game that a lot of religions play. There are certain things that are forbidden that you're actually not supposed to do, but there are certain things that are forbidden that you're not supposed to do. And it's really just an impetus to pleasure, really. And it's a very silly game, and it's very frustrating.
I prefer the philosophy of give yourself over to absolute pleasure.
On verse 16.
I withhold not my heart from any joy.
Go ahead, Tomer.
Yes. On verse 16, Clines notes that some commentators like Budd, Driver Gray, and Holschel delete this verse, mainly because it doesn't seem to add much to verse 14. If the wicked person died of the poison, which is implied in verse 14, when does he suck the poison? He writes that it is unlikely that he does so after the eating and vomiting, as most translations imply. Rather, the sweetmeat in his mouth was actually poison, and while he thought that it was savory, he was in fact absorbing more and more poison. Thus, Clines favors reading it was poison that he sucked in verses 12 and 13. Although it seems that this image does not fit in with the usual understanding of verse 14, if we understand verse 14b to describe, quote, not what happens in the stomach, but what the stomach as distinct from the mouth recognizes to be harmful food, the two images cohere. And verse 16 tells us that the stomach was right to heave, end quote. The vomiting solves nothing, since the fatal poison is already at work.
I suppose it's interesting, the mention of keeping something in your mouth and absorbing it longer, because I know some medicines and thus some toxins you can actually absorb more quickly by putting them under your tongue. I don't know if anyone's ever had a thing prescribed as, a sublingual little tablet, but yeah, keeping something in your mouth can actually absorb it faster, depending what it is. So that's always fun.
Are we talking about those little paper stamps?
Not specifically, but I'm sure that the same principle applies.
Okay. You know the ones.
I do.
Yes.
I do. Not actually from personal experience. I was just thinking of the time a kid tried to sell me acid, and I was like, dude, do you take debit? I don't It was just the moment. It was a very funny moment.
I wonder how there is a way, I'm sure, that we can watch a movie online, two or more of us, and just watch it at the same time. Because I keep suggesting Jabberwocky because I know you'd love that.
I would. I've been looking.
Still haven't seen it, and I want to watch it with you now.
I would love that. If you could figure out where I can.
I'm sorry.
That's why you call it the Vorpal bunny, and not the rabbit of Care Berman or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry. I've been looking for it. I've downloaded Tubi and Pluto, and
you don't need it. It's on YouTube.
It is?
Yeah,
I couldn't
free.
find it.
I don't even think it's got commercials attached to it. It's just free.
I tried to find
hold
one.
on. Is this like a country thing? Because some countries have certain like movies available. Others don't.
I may have to. Yeah, if you send me the link, I might have to get my
Okay.
Anyway.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, well, and that opens the world of movie reviews. And I mean, shitty Christian movie reviews are always hilarious.
Yeah.
There's a couple of really bad ones where you're just like, oh my God.
Yeah. Speaking of movie reviews, I actually liked Zootopia 2 a lot more than I thought I would.
I haven't seen it yet. I watched Zootopia 1. I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
What's that?
Zootopia 2 is it's not a kids movie. Because all the themes are actually grown up. I don't want to say adult, but it's definitely grown up.
Zootopia?
Yeah, you ever watched Zootopia?
I don't know. Never heard of that.
Wow, interesting. Okay.
Well, now we can watch with Isaac.
It's a joke. It's a joke. In the UK, it's called Zootropolis.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
You're kidding. You're fucking with me. Now you're fucking with me, Zootropolis.
I think in Europe it's called Zootropolis because there is like a store.
Yeah, well, you know how the Brits are. They've always got to pronounce things wrong, like aluminium.
Oh my God. He's telling the truth.
we're you have Metropolis and it's quite common. Like, we have the Metropolitan Police and so I guess.
No, I understand that.
I think it's probably down to some like legal thing. Maybe there's like something called Zootopia already, like a pet shop or something.
Okay, well, I don't want to rile Tomer, who at some point will be assuming that things are irrelevant.
Are you done? Because I'm not.
I will need something to cheer me up on New Year's Day because that's a bad day for me. So if we can arrange it with Peter, we'll see what we can do. Okay. All right.
Way up to
that would be fun. We will
17.
That's a great idea. We'll watch Jabberwocky on New Year's Day online as a group.
That sounds fun.
You're also totally correct that it is the legal stuff because it was due to Disney being unable to trademark the name Zootopia in some of these territories for various legal reasons, including something Danish. Okay.
Is it like an amusement park or something?
Yeah, they registered the name Zootopia, and in Germany, film was titled Zoomania due to a children's book titled Zootopolis.
Speaking of which, that Disney movie
which
Moana,
was too similar to Zootropolis. Oh my fucking God!
That Disney movie Moana had a kind of problem too. I think she was Italian, but there was a porn star.
Oh no!
Using the same name.
Oh no! No!
Google is my friend.
Oh,
I think she's going to be a bit more difficult to find now.
It's just messed. Oh, God. Okay. All right. Let's get back to the commentary before I say something inappropriate.
Before Tomer blows up.
Yeah. 17. Seow writes that the expression tributaries of a river, in Hebrew palagot nahare, is unique, and its precise reference is unclear. It may refer to irrigation canals that support the cultivation of plants, as we see in Psalms 1:3, 65:10, which is 9, and might allude to the Garden of Eden, whence flowed the river that divided into 4, as we see in Genesis 2:10-14, also Peshitta and Rashi. He writes, however, that the tributaries may be a metaphor for abundance, as the term suggests in 29:6, which refers to tributaries of oil. Thus, the expression probably stands alongside streams of honey and cream, perhaps in allusion to the promised land, which is characterized as flowing with milk and honey, as we see in Exodus 3, verses 8 and 17, 13:5, 33:3. This is also suggested by the reference to God's purging in the preceding verse, Yorishenu, verse 15b, for the verb appears frequently in connection with God's purging the inhabitants of the promised land, as we see in Exodus 34:24, Numbers 21:32, 32:21, Deuteronomy 4:38, 9 verses 3 and 5, etc. Thus, the reference may be both to the Garden of Eden and to the promised land. On 20-22, Habel writes that these verses focus on the greed that motivates the wicked. Instead of inner peace, they possess a raging appetite, which drives them to consume everything within reach. The eating metaphor is here expressed as gluttony. Their exploitation of the earth inevitably leads to a shortage in produce, and thus the fortunes the rich may amass at the expense of others leads to ruin. Divine retribution is not immediate. Instead, the evil builds up within the wicked until it reaches the saturation point. Then evil takes its toll, as when poison penetrates in verse 14, or when God unleashes his fury in verse 23a. Tzofar uses the term amal, misery, trouble, to argue against Job, who claims that he was born to suffer amal, as we see in 3 verses 10 and 20. But Tzofar's understanding of amal is very different. Quote, "It is the misery which emerges when one is completely filled with evil. Instead of being a paragon of purity, Job is riddled with corruption."
Yeah, that's another fantasy of the religious. The idea that the wicked are miserable because they are wicked. I have to say, given current examples, the wicked don't seem to give a damn that they're wicked. They're quite happy with
it.
it.
A pretty good movie. Sorry.
Yeah.
On 24 and 25, Hartley comments, quote, "The picture continues by describing the evildoer caught in hand-to-hand combat with God. But terrified by God's iron weapon, i.e. a sword, he flees for his life. But he will not escape, for God will raise his bow and shoot a bronze-tipped arrow at his fleeing opponent. The arrow is released with such force that it will pierce through his body and extend out his back. Its glittering point, resembling a lightning bolt, will split his gall, i.e. his gallbladder, bringing certain death. This double imagery shows that there is no escape from the weapons of divine justice. Compare Isaiah 24:18 and Amos 5:18 and 19, for they are able to strike at close and long range. Conscious that God's arrow has torn his viscera, the wounded person is flooded with terrors. Viscera. With this language, Tzofar alludes to Job's lament in 16:13. There, Job accuses God of attacking him like a fierce warrior. Tzofar's response is that Job has discerned correctly, for God is justly fighting a rebellious man. In his opinion, Job is experiencing God's mighty blows against his hidden sins and will soon die.
You're going to experience God's mighty blows.
Exactly.
God's a little bitch.
Sable Eagle says Tomer may think it's irrelevant, but it's not ear elephant. It's ear hippopotamus.
You know, I've been thinking of retirement.
Ear?
You know what?
I think does he mean or Mesopotamia?
No, I don't think so. And Tomer,
yes.
do let's be clear. Nobody's actually making fun of you if you mispronounce anything in English. We know that English doesn't live up to its own fucking rules.
Yeah, I mean,
those of us who have studied any other languages at all know that.
Yeah, don't judge me, but I actually like the word viscera. It's just a nice word. Know what it means, but like the word itself.
Okay,
it sounds good.
Yeah,
especially like visceral reaction. Good word.
Summer, did you have more?
Yes, I do have one final comment. 26 through 28. Habel writes that Tzofar describes the destruction of God awaiting the wicked, which consumes the property, person, and household. Darkness is a symbol of destruction and death in Job, and fire indicates the direct act of divine intervention. Here suggesting an designated as... darkness is a symbol of destruction and death in Job, and fire indicates the direct act of divine intervention. Here's designated as unfanned by human hands. Habel suggests that Tzofar's reference to the fire may be a cruel reminder of Job losing his flocks and shepherds to the fire of God in 116. The heaven and earth, which act as witnesses to covenants and treaties in the ancient Near East, are portrayed here as exposing the wicked, rather than defending them. Habel notes Holbert's suggestion that Tzofar is mocking Job's hope for a heavenly witness, and for the earth to cry out for his vindication. Tzofar retorts that the heavens and earth testify against people like Job. According to him, a fixed day of wrath has been determined for judgment on the wicked, where the agents of annihilation converge to eliminate the wicked.
Any ancient Christians?
Yes, actually. And I wrote everyone. Because, yeah, there's not a lot. Okay, so the fathers give an almost unanimous interpretation of Tufal's second speech. They recognize how his words are morally correct and worthy of attention when they refer to a general context, according to Gregory, Chrysostom, Ishodat, Origen, and Olympiodorus, but also how they appear to be groundlessly reproachful and falsely accusatory when they are referred to Job's specific case, according to Philip and Hesychius. Tufal's words also have a prophetic value, as they announce the gifts of the Spirit and final judgment, according to Ephraim and Gregory.
I mean, it is true that something can be broadly true for a group statistically, and yet not true in a specific case. That at least is an accurate principle, so half a point. Who's a little cute kitty? Oh, the orange love. Oh, he doesn't need the brain cell. He has cuddles. There's a myth that all orange cats share a single brain cell. And I think that Russell with the buttons on YouTube, I think he's been hoarding them all.
Yes, I'm done. I'm done, actually.
All right. Are we then moving on to 21?
I think we can, yes.
Yeah, why not?
All right. I will be reading then. Then Job answered, "Listen carefully to my words, and let this be your consolation. Bear with me, and I will speak. Then after I have spoken, mock on. As for me, is my complaint addressed to mortals? Why should I not be impatient? Look at me and be appalled, and lay your hands upon your mouth. When I think of it, I am dismayed, and shuddering seizes my flesh. Why do the wicked live on, reach old age, and grow mighty in power, and don't even get taken out of office when they're impeached multiple times?" Sorry, that's only in my translation. "Their children are established in their presence, and their offspring before their eyes. Their houses are safe from fear, and no rod of God is upon them."
No matter how much fraud they all commit in the entire family.
"Their bull breeds without fail. Their cow calves and never miscarries. They send out their little ones like a flock, and their children dance around. They sing to the tambourine and the lyre, and rejoice at the sound of the pipe. They spend their days in prosperity, and in peace they go down to Sheol. They say to God, 'Leave us alone. We do not desire to know your ways. What is the Almighty that we should serve him? And what profit do we get if we pray to him? Is not their prosperity indeed their own achievement? The plans of the wicked are repugnant to me. How often is the lamp of the wicked put out? How often does calamity come upon them? How often does God distribute pains in his anger? How often are they like straw before the wind, and like chaff that the storm carries away? You say God stores up their iniquity for their children. Let it be paid back to them, so that they may know it. Let their own eyes see their destruction, and let them drink of the wrath of the Almighty. For what do they care if their household after them? for their household after them, when the number of their months is cut off. Will any teach God knowledge? Seeing that the judges, those who are on high, one dies in full prosperity, being wholly at ease and secure, his loins full of milk. His loins are full of milk. Not going to focus. Okay. And the marrow of his bones moist. Another dies.
The JPS has. I should note the JPS has the marrow of his bones is juicy.
Is anyone else thinking of Tyrion Lannister? How do you want to die? And my bed at the age of 80 with a horse cock around or a horse mouth around my cock. And a belly full of wine.
And a belly full of wine. I loved that.
Where did the horse come from?
Okay, and the marrow of his bones moist.
Tyrion Lannister, he worships only the god of tits and wine, which I believe is actually me.
Another dies in bitterness of soul, never having tasted of good. They lie down alike in the dust, and the worms cover them. Oh, I know your thoughts and your schemes to wrong me. For you say, where is the house of the prince? Where is the tent in which the wicked live? Have you not asked those who travel the roads? And do you not accept their testimony? That the wicked are spared in the day of calamity and are rescued in the day of wrath? Who declares their way to their face? And who repays them for what they have done? When they are carried to the grave, a watch is kept over their tomb. The clods of the valley are sweet to them. Everyone will follow after, and those who went before are innumerable. How then will you comfort me with empty nothings? There is nothing left of your answers but falsehood.
Job was right. Henry Kissinger was buried with honors.
I'm going to remember this last verse because I just want to just make that my staple answer to all the creationists I argue with.
I did want to point something out here. Rod of God stuff. I actually have a Valentine's Day themed Rod of God T-shirt on the Teespring. So go ahead and get
I don't know why we're talking about the Rod of God. He's obviously a bottom.
He is the alpha and the omega, so kind of.
So he's bi.
Self-impregnation.
Yes.
Clearly, you haven't read enough fan fiction. Mpreg is always possible.
I guess.
I mean, Jesus is his own dad, but I don't know about him getting himself pregnant. But
okay.
Wouldn't be the weirdest shit he's ever done.
Okay, on verses 4 through 6, Habel writes that Job's central issue is his legal complaint, siach, against God, and not against any human. God is supposed to uphold justice, and so Job cried out to him to meet him in court. He claims that he has the right to be impatient with God and expects his friends to be sympathetic with him. Job argues against his friends, that instead of blaming him, they should be silent in astonishment at the harsh truth evident in his plight. When Job contemplates his own experience, he is seized with terror. Thus, he sets aside the moral lawsuit against God in order to challenge his friend's doctrine of just retribution for the wicked, a claim refuted by his own plight.
And also the life experience of literally everybody who's watched a wicked person live.
On 7 and 8, Clines writes that the question, why do the wicked live, doesn't mean just how can your theology account for the fact, but to a larger question, quote, why in the government of a righteous God do the wicked live, end quote, according to Davidson. Job is not seeking a dialectual triumph over the friends, quote unquote, according to Piquet, but rather is terrified of the prospect that the wicked prosper in life. Unlike the psalmists who cry to the heavens to urge God to stop the wicked from prospering, Job is not suffering by their hands. Instead, he argues that because they are prospering, then God is, quote, an absentee landlord of an amoral universe, end quote. Job wants the doctrine of divine retribution to be true because he wants to get his just desert, not the wicked. His experience taught him that this doctrine is false, but he does not rejoice in this discovery and is appalled by it. Job portrays the wicked being surrounded by his children, in contrast to his friends' claims, as we've seen 1534, 1819, 2026. This is emphasized by with them always, imam, and before their eyes, le'eneihem, which Davidson takes as, quote, a pathetic touch from the hand of the man whose sons had been taken from him, end quote.
So he's saying the wise saying that God brings judgment on the evil is not actually true in this world. And they're just saying, well, gaslight yourself into believing it anyway. What does your experience matter? But the justification of like, you know, maybe it's different in this case, but it's still a general principle. And Job is saying, no, it's not. No, it is not. The wicked often prosper. Like most of the time, they do not get their just deserts in this life. And as I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, Lawrence, this is being written before there's a really clear idea of like a paradise type afterlife floating around.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
So
yeah, it seems to take it for granted that, like, well, if they're not being punished in this life, we can't expect that they will be punished in some afterlife. So you can't.
Yeah, but they talk about future punishment coming on their descendants, not on them in some other spiritual. So there's no afterlife in this equation at this time. This is not the dialogue. Sometimes I wonder if that's why afterlives were invented, so that justice could come at some future time and we could still pretend that it's real in the universe and not only real if we make it so. It just makes me think of so many times where people have said, but don't you want to believe that, you know, good will triumph and justice will prevail and whatever other thing. And I'm like, that, what does that have to do with anything? Why should what I want to believe matter? I would love to believe all sorts of things. I'd love to believe I'll win a massive lottery jackpot tomorrow. Not going to make it real. I want to believe true things more than I want to lie to myself about the nature of reality, which is apparently somehow unique.
On verses 11 and 12, Hartley comments, quote, the wealth from numerous flocks guarantee the security of the household. With no fear of being molested, quote, their infants and children, end quote, play heartily and with abandon, just like sheep, quote unquote. Compare Psalms 107:41, Ezekiel 36:37. Sent forth, shalach carries the idea of, quote, releasing or allowing to run freely, end quote. Compare Isaiah 32:20. Because the children are so happy, their play may be characterized as dance. Also, there are great festive occasions when all the family dance to the music of timbrel, harp, and flute. This picture represents idyllic happiness. Job underscores the joy of the children to show that the merrymaking is not a facade, as is often the case at a feast put on by the rich. He also is countering the argument that if a wicked person prospers, his children will surely be cursed.
Yeah, usually he sets them up pretty well with his corruption and influence and money. And I mean, you know, look at Elon Musk. He was born rich because his Nazi father owned an exploitative borderline slave mine in South Africa. And his family left Canada because we weren't racist enough for them and moved to South Africa because they still had apartheid going on. And there he pretty much became obscenely rich off of mining slave labor. And then Elon goes out into the world and is set up with so much money that he can lose bets and still bet again. He can go all in and still lose and still bet again because there is no real risk to him.
Yeah.
I mean, there is an answer why the evil do better. And it's not because God is ignoring them by not punishing them for what they rightly deserve. It's because they benefit from a system.
Yeah.
And
well, that's a reality-based answer, not a faith-based one. Aaron, is your dinosaur talking to you again?
I was saying Elon is now claiming religion on top of everything else.
Oh, good Lord. Well.
Yep.
Okay, on 14 and 15, Seow writes that Job argues that those who live blissfully do not deserve it. They do not reject the wicked, as we see in Psalms 6:9, which is 8, 119, 115, and 139, 19, but rather in God when they say to him, "Turn away from us." They are disinterested in the knowledge of God's ways, opposite to penitent people, as we see in Isaiah 58:2, and essentially are willfully ignorant, according to Luther. The language they use is reminiscent of Pharaoh's dismissal of Yahweh before the Exodus, as we see in Exodus 5:2, or to the person who denies it, saying, "Who is Yahweh?" Proverbs 39, and invokes a rejection of authority, as we see in Judges 9:28 and 38, and 1 Samuel 25:10. They also dismiss the need to communicate with God as having no advantage. Their faith is utilitarian, and they are the, quote, most impious of the impious, end quote.
Oh, well, sounds like my kind of people.
Of course.
Oh, no, these are the ones that believe in God only because it benefits them. You know, like they have never been to a church or read a Bible, but they'll clear out protesters to stand in front of a church they've never been to and hold a Bible upside down that they can't read.
Okay, yeah, I'm related to a lot of those.
No orange ones, at least.
Yeah.
Okay, on 19 through 21, Habel notes that Job cites an assumption made by his friends that God may hide, tzafan, his punishment from the wicked and reserve it to the children, as we see in Exodus 25 and Deuteronomy 5:9. This doctrine was already refuted by Jeremiah, as we see in 31, 29 through 30, and Ezekiel in chapter 18. Job objects to this unjust doctrine and argues that the wicked should be punished for their crimes and face their own judgment. After they are dead, the fate of their children will be beyond their keenness or concern. Job alludes to the wicked drinking the poison of Shaddai, much like how his spirit was forced to drink the poison of Shaddai's arrows when they penetrate his body, as we've seen in 6:4. An allusion also made by Tzofar regarding the fearful arrows of El's fury penetrating the wicked, as we see in 20, 23 through 25. The eye of the wicked seeing their own fate contrasts with Tzofar's picture of others seeing, quote-unquote, the fate of the wicked, and the eye no longer spying on their place, as we see in 27 and 9. On 24, well-nourished in body. In Hebrew, atinav mal'u chalav. Literally, his atinim are full of milk. The word atinav, derived from atin, is a hapax, and a variety of interpretations exist for its meaning. Early translations assume that the reference is to some part of the body. Thus, Septuagint and Vulgate read, his entrails, Peshitta, his sides. Habel favors Septuagint and renders, with intestines full of cream.
Ew! Oh my God.
Well, good to know that we have intestines full of cream just in case your human feces rot early.
Don't you just love when your intestines are full of cream?
I actually prefer Steinsaltz's translation.
I think there's only one of this panel that knows what it would be like to have intestines full of cream.
His udders filled with milk.
Yeah, I mean,
wait. Was there a version of God that did breasts and breastfed, and you did a whole video on it, Lawrence? I mean,
yeah.
Say that again.
The wisdom.
Breastfeeding God.
Yeah.
In Odes of Solomon.
Odes of Solomon, 19.
Yeah. Though in Hebrew, the modern Hebrew, atin means udder. So.
Oh, okay.
I think that's.
Yeah, I mean, JPS has his pails are full of milk.
Okay, so it's like he has prosperous cattle that give lots of milk. Okay.
Yeah.
That's less amusing, but given the economy
and
and
the verse, it kind of feels like it should be something a bit more, his body, because it's got like the marrows of his bones is juicy and or moistened.
Oh, stop it. Oh.
Rashi writes that in Mishnaic Hebrew, ma'atan refers to a vessel for storing olive oil, and, quote, his tallow and his moisture and his fat are called atinav, end quote. This meaning is favored by Kara, Rabbeinu Tam, and Gordes, who also took the olives, quote unquote, to be a euphemism for the male genitals, with the milk standing for semen.
Sherlock.
Yes. The testicles meaning is favored by Hartley and Seow. Also.
Okay.
Yes. Targum, Nachmanides, and Gersonides render as breasts. So, but yes.
I was going to say, Steinsaltz has his translation, and then he has the note, his between the lines. Blessings rest both upon what emerges from his body and his insides.
Yeah. Clines notes that there is a long tradition supporting this interpretation, and many tales of male lactation exist. For example, Gray reports a traveler's tale of men developing breasts and lactating, and the Talmud reported a miracle, quote unquote, of a father suckling his child in Talmud Shabbat 53b. He notes that while male lactation is documented, the circumstances... He notes that while male lactation is documented, the circumstances are always unusual, and it is hard to believe that such a phenomenon lies behind the depiction here. Hakham, however...
after the movie Clerks, where they were extolling the virtues of porn starring chicks with dicks, and then somebody else commented that there are no chicks with dicks. There's only men with tits.
I mean, they clearly haven't seen Rammstein's Pussy, the cover of the single.
Okay.
Yes.
How did we get here?
I mean, that's essentially it.
It was your depravity, Lawrence.
But I can't even argue though that it's not textually relevant, because Mesopotamian literature. I mean, the thing about the writings about Inanna and her husband, and furrowing the fields and cream, and it's very suggestive, and it absolutely means what it sounds like. It is not, So it's those images being used in that way is very much par for the course in that part of the world.
I guess we have to thank religious thinking for some of these fetish ideas. Why do males have nipples? It must be for a reason.
Nipples for men. Slugs? He created slugs? They can't hear, they can't think, they can't operate machinery. If I were a supreme being, I wouldn't muck about with butterflies and daffodils. I'd have started with lasers. 8 o'clock, day one. That's my favorite movie quote ever.
So, Hakham, however, writes that the use of breasts here is a metaphorical and hyperbolic expression, meaning that his chest protrudes and is full of fat. Other body parts suggested are thighs, emending to atamav, according to Dorm, Ehrlich, Terrien, Forer, NEB, and Pope. Body, figure in NAB, and powers, according to Moffat, and organs, according to Ditrani. Some, however, did not take atinav to be a body part. Ibn Ezra writes that in Arabic, atin refers to the place for the kneeling down of camels to drink water. Tur-Sinai takes atinim as oil pressed from olives and renders he is full of oil and milk. Clines notes that some take atin to mean pail, bucket, or trough, as we see in BDB Dictionary, JPS, Dillman, Butt, and Peak, or to luxury, amending to adinav, his luxury, but the sense is strained. On verses 27 and 28, Hartley writes that Job realizes his friends are unpersuaded and so anticipates their next move. They deduced from his misfortune that he is guilty of something serious, and so are plotting schemes, mizimah, to harm Hamas, him. The word mizimah can refer to good thought, as we see in Proverbs 3:21 and 5:2, or the mischievous plans, as we see in Psalms 21:12, which is 11. But in either case, it connotes well-thought schemes. By their schemes, Job has in mind more intricate arguments designed to discredit his arguments further. Thus, he charges his friends with using their shrewdest reasoning to harm rather than to help. Job argues that the friends will ask him about the existence of material wealth, such as a house that proves there is a noble wicked man who lives in security and prosperity. The parallel with noblemen, nadiv, is the wicked, rasha'im, which implies that he has achieved his success through wicked means. By pointing out the supposed disappearance of the wicked man's house, and by implication Job's own house, the friends will use the rhetorical question, where is the house of the noble person, to defend the law of retribution and deny any expectations. On 32 and 33, Clines writes that the tomb of the wealthy man has a watch, not as an act of honor, but as protection against grave robbers. Because the man is wealthy, he is also buried with precious objects. We know of tombs in the ancient Near East that have curses written against grave robbers, but in this case, the man has left money for guards to protect his grave. Clines also notes that it is strange that the picture of the funeral procession follows the reference to the soil in which the man is buried, being sweet to him. He notes that Peters thought that the crowds accompanying the deceased man are denizens of the underworld, and Forer thought that it might be a reference to a practice like the Indian sati, or sati? Is it sati? I don't know, sati. When wives and servants of the dead ruler are put to death along with him. Renan and Pope, yes.
How do you spell
Renan
it?
and S-A-T-I.
Sati.
Yeah.
Or Suti. But it's
Sati. Yeah.
Sati. Renan and Pope thought that the reference is made to people who follow his way of life, and Hartley thought that everyone must ultimately follow him in death. Instead, Clines writes that it is, quote, one conglomerate image, end quote. Likewise, Habel writes, quote, monarchs' bodies are borne to the tomb amid great pomp and ceremony. Even at the graveside, their influence persists as guards protect these tombs from grave robbers. Thus, the wicked rulers enjoy death as much as they do life, end quote.
Well, they enjoy as much privilege in death as they do in life. Although I have to say, the image of guards guarding a tomb, we no longer bury the rich with, golden treasures and all the rest of it. But I just thought of a comment I heard recently that when it finally happens, that thing we all can't wait to hear, they're going to have to bury him at sea. Because no amount of guards or protection will be able to stop the number of people who will come to defile that grave.
Which they could always just charge a couple of dollars for the privilege and then use that to pay for all the damage he's done.
Which reminds me of one more movie reference, which Lilith might be the only one that might get this. The best we can hope for is we can get you buried in secrecy so that your grave don't get violated.
Oh my God, which one is that?
Okay, Charlie, I've got an angle.
I don't
you recognize
know that
it?
one.
I know somebody in the chat must.
Which one is it?
Stern, you're nothing but a no-down, double-dealing, larcenous, perverted worm.
All right, Aaron. Time to put down the bottle and get you to bed.
That is another.
It's the middle of the day.
Nobody recognizes that? Okay.
I feel like I should, but I'm not. It's just not connecting.
Yeah, my unfinished journey says, "Hail Aaron and panel, and hail lasers on day one."
Is that frickin' sharks with frickin' laser beams attached to their frickin' heads?
Is that another? No, is that the same? No,
that's
But you've seen the movie I just referenced, right? I mean, you've seen Time Bandits.
I don't know. Not... Okay. It just
Okay.
I will watch.
Don't
Time
fill
Bandits.
intestines with. Don't fill intestines with cream, says my unfinished sock. Or do. I don't kink shame. Either way, like and share the stream.
Consider using a dam.
That is not an approved use for a pastry bag.
The turkey baster.
The cannoli tutorial with the creamy tip.
I tried to outdo my unfinished sock this time, but they didn't fall for it. I said, don't waste your time on butterflies and daffodils. Like and share the stream instead.
Yeah, Peter knows what I'm talking about.
See?
I am surprised that Lilith does not. That means we might have to do a double feature.
All right, look, we will set up a movie night and we'll watch whatever solution. It'll be fun.
Lawrence, this is your time to promote the Discord.
Oh yeah, good idea. You guys can do that in the Discord.
Wait. Why?
Because they can watch it in the Discord.
Yeah.
It's not because we're done, right?
No.
You can share the YouTube video.
When are you ever done, Tomer?
Never.
So, Tomer, since when are you protesting that someone wants to promote your Discord server?
I don't know about Tomer's Discord. I know about my Discord, which is the Discord that people can use.
Dismiss Discord or whatever it's called.
I sense rebellion. Yes, please.
Okay, Tomer, what do you got to say about this?
On verse 34, final comment. Seow writes that Job ends his speech by returning to the supposed consolations of his friends, which Job calls Habel, literally puff, whiff, or vapor. Seow notes that this term is commonly associated with idols and idolatry, as we see in Deuteronomy 32:21, 1 Kings 16 verses 13 and 26, 2 Kings 17:15, etc., meaning that they are ineffective and even delusive, as we see in Jeremiah 10:15, 16:19, 51:18, Zechariah 10:2, etc. The idiom console with Habel is also attested in Zechariah 10:2 in connection with the delusion of idolatry and divination. Eliphaz claimed that the friends bring consolations of God, as we see in 15:11, but the parallel made by Job to Eliphaz's speech makes it clear that what they proffer is not of God, but something illusory, perhaps implying that they are idolatrous. This view is also corroborated by the parallel with ma'al, unfaithfulness, a term used of treachery against human beings, and especially against God, as in idolatry and blasphemy, as we see in Numbers 31:16, Deuteronomy 32:51, Ezekiel 20:27, etc. Seow writes that for Job, the orthodox responses of the friends are not merely unhelpful, but are theologically dangerous.
I'm going to go ahead and agree with that. It is theologically dangerous to believe that if someone is suffering, it must be because it's their fault and they've angered God. That is a very harmful attitude to have. And it, like, a lot of people have had a lot of harm done to them in the name of that. You talk about kicking people when they're down, and the innocent especially, because an innocent person will at the very least be able to consider, oh gee, did I do something wrong? And you can contrive something
to blame yourself for. I know what it's called, like victims blaming themselves for their own abuse.
Yeah. I mean, people say things like Stockholm Syndrome. That's not really what Stockholm Syndrome is. But you are trained when you are abused, you are trained to make excuses for your abuser. That's part of the psychological setup that goes into it. And it's also very much something that happens in religion. You're never allowed to, God gets all the credit for all the good things that happen, and you take all the blame for all the bad things that happen. That is the dynamic that is set up.
I thought apologizing for just everything was simply being Canadian.
Sorry doesn't always mean what you might think it means. I'm sorry, and you'll be sorry.
What are you talking about?
I'm talking about the origin of the Geneva Convention, Sonny. We're nice until we're really not.
Okay, so Tomer, what else?
Oh, Christians, right? Yeah, their favorite. Yeah, 21. Let's see.
I've noticed how biased Tomer is. He never brings up ancient Mormons or Hindus or Sikhs.
Yes, the ancient Mormons, very ancient.
I mean, yeah.
I said not really because there isn't really anything like interesting in the sense of, hey, it's Jesus, guys. Check out, it's Jesus. What did they say? They say that Job's extended and detailed reflection on the prosperity of the wicked on earth is not interpreted by the fathers as criticism against God's way of ruling and administrating our material world, but is a constant source of moral instruction and mediation for the righteous and the faithful.
It doesn't mean what it says. It means this other thing that still lets us be right.
Yes. And in the second part of Job's speech, the fathers demonstrate that if there is any criticism in Job's words, it is addressed to Zophar and his ignorance of divine justice. Yeah, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. That's all.
Okay. Shall we then move on to 22?
Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah.
We can.
Yeah.
Eliphaz the
Who's reading
Temanite.
this one? Because my throat still hurts from doing a Randy Savage.
Yeah.
I'll do it.
I wonder if Isaac's throat would hurt from doing Randy Savage.
I'm sure it would.
I wish I was better at it, but for some reason I really can't do like voices, accents, or anything.
That's definitely not what Aaron was talking
You
about.
sweet summer child, he was not.
Oh, wait. From doing who?
Randy Savage.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I make no judgments about the size of the equipment you would be dealing with, but I do know you're an enthusiastic and dedicated person, and I would expect the same.
I feel the need to apologize, even though it was just lighthearted ribbing, but I just love Isaac's naivete at that moment.
He's such a sweet summer child, and we are definitely. It's kind of funny because, the Christians are all like, oh, the gays are all perverts. And he's like the sweetest, most innocent one here who's like, what are you talking about? I have no idea. La, 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 la. Very
Exactly. Isaac, did you?
Yeah, also I'm a service top, so.
Sorry, what?
I said I'm a service top, so my mind doesn't necessarily go
service top.
Yes.
Did you want to read this one?
Funny,
yeah, sure.
I'm a
I
service
thought Lilith
sub.
said. I thought Lilith said she was going to read it. But she is gone now.
Okay, she's gone. I will read it then.
Yep, she ran away.
Eliphaz the Temanite said in reply, can a man be of use to God? A wise man benefit him? Does Shaddai gain if you are righteous? Does he profit if your conduct is blameless? Is it because of your piety that he arraigns you and enters into judgment with you? You know that your wickedness is great and that your iniquities have no limit. You exact pledges from your fellows without reason and leave them naked, stripped of their clothes. Or is that naked, stripped of their clothes?
Stop fucking with English, Isaac. It's bad enough when Tomer does it.
I know. Okay, I'm joking. You do not give the thirsty water to
robbing
drink.
me.
You deny bread to the hungry. The land belongs to the strong. The privileged occupy it. You have sent away widows empty-handed. The strength of the fatherless is broken. Therefore, snares are all around you, and sudden terrors frighten you, or darkness, so you cannot see. A flood of waters covers you. God is in the heavenly heights. See the highest stars, how lofty. You say, what can God know? Can he govern through the dense cloud? The clouds screen him, so he cannot see, as he moves about the circuit of heaven. Have you observed the immemorial path that evil men have trodden? How they were shriveled up before their time, and their foundation poured out like a river. They said to God, leave us alone. What can Shaddai do about it? But it was he who filled their houses with good things. The thoughts of the wicked are beyond me. The righteous, seeing it, rejoiced. The innocent laughed with scorn. Surely their substance was destroyed, and their remnant consumed by fire. Be close to him and wholehearted. Good things will come to you thereby. Accept instruction from his mouth. Lay up his words in your heart. If you return to Shaddai, you will be restored. If you banish iniquity from your tent, if you regard treasure as dirt, offer gold as stones of the wadi, and Shaddai be your treasure and precious silver for you. When you seek the favor of Shaddai and lift up your face to God, you will pray to him and he will listen to you, and you will pay your vows. You will decree and it will be fulfilled, and light will shine upon your affairs. When others sink low, you will say it is pride, for he saves the humble. He will deliver the guilty. He will be delivered through the cleanness of your hands.
Thank you, Isaac. That one didn't
Cleanness?
require, special voice like the one Lawrence read definitely did. I have a question on verse 14. Because the translation that I'm reading says, and he walks on the dome of heaven.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
I was definitely gonna talk about this. So this is something that if you want the full commentary on, you can go watch my video, Is the Flat Earth Biblical? Because I definitely go into it quite a bit with this verse, and with other verses as well, and especially in Job. There is
a full-length feature film. It had to be more than just one verse.
Right. Yeah. It was. It's about an hour and a half, but it's
If
all
anybody's
in there.
interested, if anybody ever had the argument, does the Bible imply? Because the Bible never says the earth is flat, but does it imply it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And the fact that it takes from a whole bunch of ancient Near Eastern cosmologies that would all agree with each other that the earth is flat. Sorry about the barking dog, by the way.
If you ever get
seen that, Peter, can you put a link to that in the chat?
Yeah. I was already looking for it.
Sometimes you get.
Thank you.
You sometimes get Christians who will claim, kind of like how Muslims claim miracles in the Quran. They'll claim like, oh, the Bible knew about this or that before science discovered it, and so they knew the world was round when everyone thought it was flat, and they'll base it on some verse, right?
Job
Which
40
uses the same.
If I remember right.
Mm-hmm.
No, not Job. I'm sorry. Isaiah 40:22, if I remember correctly. That when it says that God sits upon the circle of the earth, or sits above the circle of the earth.
Right. Yeah. I go into that too.
It's the same word as this verse, right?
It's one word of the word is shug, and the other one is dur, and one of them Hebrew, but one of them means sphere and one of them means circle.
Yeah. So the word,
but they don't use a word for sphere to ever refer to the earth.
The word dor, I think, is an old word which would mean sphere. Like kador means a ball, which I guess you can translate as like a sphere. Yeah. And hug is like the word that is used in that verse, and it's also used in this verse.
How do you pronounce it?
Hug.
Okay.
Hug.
All right. Yeah. I'm just wondering why they spelled it in English the way that they did.
So CH is normally used in as a transliteration of ch.
Ah, gotcha.
Hug.
Yeah,
Yeah.
hug.
Yeah.
It's like the word is a reference to circle.
Yes.
I would say that to
Basically.
be a bit more correct in transliteration, like there are two h sounds in Hebrew, and nowadays, modern Hebrew, they're pronounced exactly the same. But there are some dialects, and they definitely were pronounced differently before. And so, like, trying to think of a word like Hanukkah definitely has a h sound at the beginning, but words like hug, it's more of a softer h sound, like hummus.
And these things do change over time, which is
Right.
Yeah. So modern day like modern Hebrew speakers would just pronounce it as hug and hummus. Yeah.
And the movie I referenced earlier, Bruno Zeigert's 6379 got it correctly. He with $2 Canadian. He says the movie you referenced was heavy metal.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Is it 22:14?
Yeah. So I do want to point out a few things here. One, like I said, I've said this before. I want to delve into it in like a longer paper, but like in this section as well, there's a ton of this imagery about darkness, right? Especially in what is it? Let's see, we have verse 13 and 14. So yeah, what does God know? Can he judge through the deep darkness? So the darkness, clouding knowledge, but also there is stuff in, I think, the Apocalypse of Abraham, which is obviously written later, that also suggests that God can't judge through clouds. And there definitely might be some connection here because let's see, Chaim Cohen says in his paper the basic meaning of the term Arafel, darkness. This is a paper from 1995. He says what is suggested here is that Arafel, when used with respect to clouds, refers technically to the weather phenomenon of dense fog and to those low and dense cloud formations, especially as seen covering the peaks of mountains that are associated with it. So you still have that kind of mountain imagery retained, even if it's not like explicit. It's the fact that they are referring to, and he goes over this entire study about like the different usages of the term and how it can refer to like because they have it can refer to like darkness without clouds or the darkness within the clouds or God's abode, right? Being that he's living in the clouds. In fact, we kind of get a bit of this in the next verse as well when it says that thick clouds enwrap him. So that he resides in darkness.
So we're talking about the obscuring of divine mysteries, not the clouds are keeping God from hearing our prayers, like the Wi-Fi.
Closer to it, but it is hard to fully understand, which is why I want to delve into it deeper in actual paper.
Yeah, fair enough.
So, but yeah, walking along the dome of heaven, the Hug, right?
Yeah, that's interesting.
This is very much referring to like, okay, I want you to picture this, right? When talking about this stuff, he's talking about the distance between God and like any like lone person, right? And if we take up a cosmological worldview of like a globe, like we know the Earth to be, then this imagery loses its function. It doesn't mean anything. But since they're talking about like this actual distance, it would mean far more under like the cosmological model that they actually would have had, which again I go into in my video. So
snow globe, basically.
Kind of closer to a snow globe, yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting how in Isaiah you have like Hug Haaretz, I guess is the Hebrew there, like the circle of the earth.
Yeah, there's the circle of the earth, and there's also the circle of heaven because how they split up the universe, right? They split up into layers. This goes back to Mesopotamian thought, where there are texts that are incredibly ancient, way older than any manuscript we've ever had of the Bible, or even when the Bible would have been written, that show that they did split the universe into multiple parts. And then among those, or at least within those separations, they also split those up into multiple parts. And if you're interested in something like that, you can read, what's his name? Wayne Horowitz's study. I think what's it called? Ancient Near Eastern Cosmic Geography, I want to say, or like Mesopotamian Cosmic Geography. I think that's the name of it. So don't quote me on the name, but it's a very, very good study of that kind of stuff.
Could it be argued, since they definitely viewed the sky as being dome-shaped rather than a circle, like a flat circle, that when they say, the circuit of heaven or whatever, and when they say the circuit of Earth, they're not necessarily talking about the extent of this flat Earth is this big circle. It's just the circuit is around me, like the horizon is
the dome of the heavens. And then there were later ideas of domes, crystalline domes that carried each of the planets in its orbit around the Earth, including obviously the moon and the sun, which were considered satellites because of course. And you could have variants of that for both a flat or a round Earth, obviously. But that's what Tycho Brahe is referring to when he says there's no spheres in the heavens. He's talking about these crystalline spheres that would physically carry the planets on the path they were supposed to go. And that's a later idea, but it seems to have come out of this in a way.
We have to remember that in this time period, what they would have thought, of this world ocean, surrounding all the land on Earth, right? And only after that do you get the actual dome, right? The Rakia. So that's only when at that point, right, where those places meet, that would be the actual dome itself, right?
Foundation.
It would be that would be the heavens, right? So walking around the circle of the Earth would be walking around the Earth, walking around the circle of heaven would be walking around the circle of heaven. But remember, heaven is in a way surrounding the Earth.
Right, it's coming down on all sides, touching into the great eternal outward sea that you can't overcome.
And in later points in time, we have, I think, in the Apocalypse of Paul, you see that edge point, right? Where the Earth and the waters meet with the Rakia. Is also at that point you can think of it as this divine escalator or something, where it takes you up and down through different planes. So one will take you to Earth, one will take you to heaven.
The Bible has the ladder imagery, right?
Yes, plenty of ladder imagery, right? But this extends it to the ends of the Earth. So there's quite a lot that goes into this.
I'm just envisioning the Truman Show and Truman on his boat at the end and sailing his boat right into the wall and freaking out. That's sort of the imagery of the heavens reaching down, to the sea although obviously on a much grander scale than a single town by the seaside.
All right, Tomer, you want to start?
Yes. Okay. So we'll start with 2 and 3. Habel writes that Eliphaz begins his speech with a didactic rhetorical question, which focuses on the doctrine of divine self-sufficiency and detachment. God cannot be intimidated or have his status endangered, and divine justice is dependent on the complete impartiality of God. No human virtue, wisdom, or power can force him to act. The verb sakan could be rendered as in danger, but it can also be understood as benefit. Still, the point is the same for both options. Even a human being who is perfect in his ways, quote unquote, cannot affect God. This stands in contrast with Job's claim that if he has committed any sin, then it wouldn't have any effect on God, and that there is no justification for God's perpetual attacks, as we see in 7:20. Habel notes that there is a certain irony in Eliphaz's question in verse 3, which lies in its hidden association with the narrative framework of the book. Quote, Yahweh seems to be seeking some gain from making his wager with Satan that Job is indeed a man perfect, quote unquote, in 1:8 in his ways. Job portrays God as gaining a sadistic pleasure from taunting, torturing, and spying on humans, as we've seen 7, 17, and 18, and 10, 3 through 17. He acts as if he were like any other human, as we've seen 10, 4 through 6. Eliphaz seeks to protect God from any hint of weakness or any flaw that might endanger the doctrine of divine justice and impartial rulership of earth. His God is totally other than humans, or even God's celestial servants. Compare 4:18. Job, therefore, can have no power over God to force his appearance in court. Sorry, I brought my water. Okay. 4 and 5. Sorry. Just a second.
Yeah, I was a bit confused by the language of this chapter because it's like, beginning he's like, "What are you saying?" and then he like changes it. Like he seems to be saying that God doesn't know what's going on or something like that. Yeah.
Maybe he's accusing God of not paying attention.
Oh, is that his answer? Like, oh, actually,
is he just
I don't
not
believe
looking?
that God it controls everything. That's why the evil are get away with things. Yeah.
Okay. On 4 and 5, Hartley notes that Eliphaz asks Job if God would accuse him for his piety, yir'ah, or enter into judgment with an upright person. Eliphaz argues that a life of genuine faith precludes such a possibility. For Eliphaz, Job is guilty of great wickedness, and that there is no end to his iniquity, quote unquote, since God is treating Job as so harshly. According to Eliphaz's theology, only Job's sin can account for his suffering. Hartley notes that there is a complete turnabout in Eliphaz's attitude towards Job. At first, he praises Job for being righteous and pious in 4, 3, and 4, and supposes that his suffering is the result of a hidden sin, and Job suffers it temporarily in order for him to repent. However, Job insists that he is innocent and appears to be defiant against authority. Eliphaz's patience has run out and is ashamed of his friend's stubbornness. He now seeks to convince Job that he is guilty of his sins and concludes that there is no end to his iniquities.
And that's, I mean, it's very reflective of the truth that the greatest sin you can commit in this, in a theological worldview is questioning the authority of the teachings, no matter what the evidence says. And, it's interesting too, because Eliphaz said before, maybe there's some mistaken secret sin that God is saying you need to focus on. Now he's accusing him of very specific things. Taking food from the poor, there's in the law, it specifically says, you can't, if you take a poor man's coat as surety for a loan, you have to give it back so he has something to sleep in at night. You can't do that. But he specifically accuses him of injustice towards the poor and the oppressed, and makes all these accusations that you can see reflections specifically of the violations of the law and rules of charity and care that are supposed to, keep the rich from taking too much advantage. But yeah, this is, he's taking a very different tone here. And he's specifically accusing Job of things that Job knows he has not done. And that's, confess. The demand to confess. It's old story.
It's a want to believe, because he believes that you have to do something bad, so he will make himself believe that the innocent person.
And because Job is actually saying, no, I didn't do anything wrong, and opposing this, it means he must be doing everything wrong. He must be the most evil and perverse man in the world, because the alternative is that Eliphaz is wrong. And he can't be wrong. So reality is wrong. Religious thinking in a nutshell.
Indeed. Tomer?
Yeah, I see a comment.
Okay. Jojo Freelancer KUP says, is there a family line of Job, like the Abrahamic family line? And is Job circumcised?
I haven't asked him.
Isn't he supposed to be sort of a righteous foreigner?
Yeah, the story is like on purpose depicting him as a non-Israelite.
According to... Sorry, continue.
Yeah, just saying it seems to be that it's depicting him on purpose as a non-Israelite, maybe even someone who lived before the time of Abraham. So there wouldn't have been circumcision.
The character is supposed to be very ancient, but I mean...
Well, yeah, we already looked at the names of places and how they don't necessarily fit in with the older times, but yeah.
According to Midrash Tanchuma, 7 were born circumcised, which it includes Job as well.
Oh, right, of course. Let me guess. Enoch, Adam, can't be Abraham because it does say
Moses.
Lawrence, is it the Gospel of Thomas? I always think it's the Gospel of Thomas, where they ask Jesus, what do you think about circumcision? And Jesus says, if God meant for people to be circumcised, they would be born without foreskins.
I mean, it might be in there. I don't remember. It's been a while since I read it.
Okay.
Well, that was far too sensible to be kept in canon.
Yeah.
So the people born circumcised are Adam, Seth, Noah, Jacob, Joseph, Moses, and Job.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, and regarding the genealogy, there is an addition in the Septuagint, which, if I'm reading correctly, seems to relate it with Genesis 36, 31 through 39. So it reads that this man is interpreted from the Syriac book as living in the land of our cities on the borders of Idumea and Arabia, and previously his name was Yobab. Now we took an Arabian wife and fathered a son whose name was Enon, and he in turn had as father Zare, a son of the sons of Esau, and his mother Bosora, so that he was the 5th from Abram. And these are the kings who reigned in the end, etc. No.
Wait, where is that?
In the Septuagint, in chapter 42, the last verses. It's like
so
17. It's an addition. Yes.
The end of this book, there is an additional thing that claims that Job is a descendant of Esau.
Yes. I think.
Okay.
Yes.
Interesting.
So he doesn't have
a
recorded progeny in canon, but in some of the additional writings, there's a hypothetical connection for him.
Yeah, because
it
there is
very
a
much
connection
seems like
Edom, and Esau as well. Like the idea is that he went. It was a pre-existing country, but he went there and like took over it, kind of, and the Edomites are considered to come from him. Yeah.
Okay.
And the Romans are also Romans, Amalek, what's his name? Hey, Haman from the Purim story from the Book of Esther are also from that family traditionally.
Okay. On verse 8, Clines notes that this verse is difficult to interpret. Verses 6, 7, and 9 refer to matters Job was responsible for. But how is it his fault if, quote, the man with the power possessed the land, end quote, in RSV? He asks, quote, if he is the chief of this village, as in chapter 29, perhaps he has some say in who should own the surrounding land. But is there such injustice within the world of the text in people of power owning land that Job must be blamed for it, end quote. He notes that the Wilde suggested that verse 8 belongs after verse 9, so that the powerful seize land from widows and orphans. While this suggestion makes more sense, it is still unclear how Job is responsible for their actions. While Job boasts of delivering the poor and make the upright drop his prey from his teeth, as we say in 29, 12, and 17, it is still unclear if failing to achieve such deliverance can count as wickedness, quote unquote. Instead, Clines favors the NAB, quote, as if the land belonged to the man of might and only the privileged were to dwell in it, end quote. He argues that this translation suggests, quote, the mindset of a haughty member of the ruling classes who has no interest in the fortunes of the lower orders, neglecting their claims on his generosity, end quote. On verses 10 and 11, Habel comments, quote, Job's identity with the wicked man described in Eliphaz's previous speech, 1520 forward, is now made explicit. The specific crimes listed above, verses 6 through 9, are not linked with the wicked man in Eliphaz's portrait, as in chapter 15, but with the associated omens of doom. The terror, pachad, and the darkness, choshech, are living forces of death that terrify the wicked man and portend his inevitable downfall. See on 15:20-24. The snare, pach, is a power of the same order, as we see in 18:9 and Psalms 91:3. The surge of waters is probably a sudden destructive downpour or flood, compare 27:20 and 38:34. Rather than linking verse 11a directly with 12 and demanding the text to read, since you cannot see through darkness, it seems preferable to recognize a deliberate ironic juxtaposition of images. Job, being a wicked man, lives in mortal fear of an impending darkness he cannot see. Verse 11. The darkness the wicked man knows he cannot escape, as we see in 15, 22, and 30. He is deluded into thinking that God, surrounded by a celestial cloud cover, is unable to see what a wicked man like Job is planning or performing, as we see in verse 14. The darkness of death the wicked man cannot see is more terrifying than the hidden God, even though God's star-studded abode is eminently visible to humans on earth.
Actually, that's something else. Yeah, in verse 11, there's also the likening of the darkness to a flood of waters, which in Nicholas Wyatt in one of his papers, he also talks about this. Sorry, I'm gonna have to pull this up because I wanna get it right. So give me a minute here.
Wyatt.
No, that's not the same person you think.
Nicholas Wyatt.
It's not Ron Wyatt.
Oh, okay.
Not that Wyatt.
Oh my god. Okay. On 13 and 14, Clines notes that the idea of God being shrouded in cloud, arafel, is common in Israelite traditions, as we find in Exodus 20:21, Deuteronomy 4:11, 2 Samuel 22:10. With the purpose of concealing God from human gaze. This view, however, is twisted here, with the clouds preventing God from seeing and hearing of earthly affairs. It is remarkable that sinners would think of such a view, which suggests that they do not bother with fine theological details. If they ask, what can God know? They mean only that they have no anxiety about possible reprisals. As Clines puts it, quote, only a theologian trying to double-guess the mind of a practical atheist could have invented such a subtle angle, end quote. God is also said to roam about, yithalech, the circuit of heaven, much like Satan who roams the earth in 1:7 and 2:2. The circuit, chug, of the heavens is also rendered as vault by RSV, NAB, and INIB, or dome by NRSV, and literally means circle, and is probably referring to the sky.
Hey, what's the word for the flood of waters here?
Flood of waters. In which verse?
In 11. Sorry.
11.
Shifat maim.
Okay, gotcha.
Yes.
Maybe the Israelites were enticing God to come into the temple with the smell of burning flesh, and then they were burning incense to envelop him in
he does cloud. Like him some barbecue.
And then he's trapped at the temple and he can't see what's going on everywhere else.
It makes me think of like the crazy guy who said that, God can't hear our prayers because the Wi-Fi and the satellites block it. some nut, but it was
5G.
very funny. Yeah, it's the 5G. The 5G. It blocks out our prayers. God is
5G is-
powerless before satellites.
I had to buy my 83-year-old mother a new phone a year or two ago, and we're in the phone store, and I'm trying to get this 5G system for her, and when she heard the salesman mention that 5G, my mother just got so paranoid because she'd been told about I don't know what the hell the 5G thing was supposed to be. Is it telepathic? Is it soul stealing? I don't know what the
actually I figured that out, or well, someone else figured it out, but I found it. Like we've had 3G, we've had 4G, gigs of the data processing. But somebody obviously incredibly stupid with no understanding of science or anything, read an article about the dangers of 5G when they were looking at G forces like gravity, like the G forces that a pilot would have on their body because they're going at super fast speeds, and they go in the spinny thing to train for the astronauts. And so 5 times gravity on your body could indeed kill you. But they didn't realize, or they didn't read, maybe they just read the first 2 sentences, and they decided that this meant that the 5 gig data connection was somehow what they were talking about instead of 5 times Earth gravity on the body, and that it was going to magically kill you. And then of course they have to come up with a reason for that. So it's the Illuminati reptoid hacker mind melding
control
bullshit. Yes.
I think it's even more innocuous. It's 5th generation. It's not even like an amount of anything. It's not like counting how strong something is. It's just
well,
a
it is a
version of the system.
It is a new, faster, stronger connection. Like the technology has advanced. As one does. But so that appears to be, as far as I can tell, that is the confusion that made them think 5G would kill them. And then they just, I just keep thinking of Pinky and the Brain, take over the world with mind control.
Yep.
Okay. Is it just me? This is reminding me of Jonah, the language. Sorry, I'm going back to
I thought of that
to
too.
verses
It's
10 through 11 here. Yes, snares are around you, sudden terror overwhelms you, or darkness, so that you cannot see. A flood of waters covers you. This is straight up. This is something in Jonah. Hold on.
I didn't think of the exact wording, but I did. Like, it's very much giving a character that is not. It's a theological story, not a historical story, with a dramatic.
Shifat Maim. No, actually, it's there is a reference to like Afifunei Maim in Jonah 2:6. It is
more of like a flow, right?
Shifa, flow, like because of the root shefa as well.
Yeah, okay. So you cast me into the deep, into the heart of the seas, and the floods surrounded me. All your waves and your billows passed over me. Where's the? Hold on. The snares is somewhere in here, right? Or no. I'm thinking of Psalm 18 or 2 Samuel 22. Is that what I'm thinking of?
What?
Just use the search function on Bible Hub.
It's hard to do that for translations.
I know, but there's certain little bits of phrasing that are kind of stick in the mind.
Okay, well, either way, I'm keeping Jonah up because I think I have I think I'm cooking here.
You're cooking.
Yeah, I'm cooking.
What kind of cooks?
The oven is still preheating.
Okay. On 15 and 16, Hartley writes that Eliphaz warns Job by alluding to legendary catastrophic events of divine punishment.
Yes.
As illustrating.
Hold on, sorry, I did have it.
Yes.
Yeah, it was 2 Samuel 22. Yeah, for the waves of death encompassed me, the torrents of perdition assailed me, the cords of Sheol entangled me, the snares of death confronted me.
So you think this is a quotation?
No, it's not a quotation. But it's there's some similar ideas here, and I also want to liken it to Jonah too, because it sounds so similar.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I have to write all
Lost
these
in the deep and all that.
Yeah. I'm writing all these down. Sorry, continue.
Yes. So Hartley writes that Eliphaz warns Job by alluding to legendary catastrophic events of divine punishment, as illustrating the general theme that gross sin is always severely punished. Hartley notes that some see in this illustration a direct reference to the Noachian flood, according to Dorm, but writes that the language seems too general to be restricted to that one event. He writes that some societies have become so corrupt and violent that God brought against them a devastating calamity in order to purge the earth of their existence. He writes, quote, "When God rained widespread judgment on these areas, all their inhabitants were untimely cut off," quote unquote, Hebrew kamat. Even those who had anchored their foundations, in Hebrew yesod, firmly in the ground in search of security against such a terrible disaster, were swept away, quote unquote, by the raging current of the river, end quote. Eliphaz says that if Job had lived during the time of such a disaster, he too would have lost everything, including his life, since by defying God, he follows the same evil course that provoked such catastrophic judgments. Eliphaz establishes an analogy between Job's punishment and those past catastrophes, and identifies Job as the same kind of corrupt person that God abandoned to their evil imaginations.
Got a couple of comments I'm going to try to read because they're building up. Sable Eagle says, if you're in an abusive relationship, you're trained to blame yourself for everything bad and credit your abuser for everything good that happens. If you're in a Turning Point USA chapter. And then you're trained to, well, this continues. If you're in a Turning Point USA chapter, you're trained to blame Biden, Harris, and Obama for everything bad and credit Trump for everything good that happens. Is U.S. politics an abusive relationship?
Yes. 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 No question. The answer is yes. Although I think, didn't I tell this joke last week when it was like, if a tree falls in the forest and everybody saw Trump cut it down, is it still Biden's fault?
Then next comment, the atheist carpenter says, if Job was born without a foreskin, do you think they would have given him one as part of his whole testing of him trial thing?
I mean, if you're laying in an ash pile covered in sores and you've just buried your children and you're suddenly destitute, I don't think you're going to take the moment to cut off the tip of your dick. But
and then lie in a pile of ashes or whatever he was doing.
Yeah, very sanitary. Very sanitary.
Yes, you have to perform your own circumcision, and all we will give you to do that with is this pair of nail clippers.
Not even a sharpened stone.
Okay. On 19 and 20, Habel notes that the Schadenfreude of the righteous, who rejoice over the fall of the wicked, is a common motif of the Psalms, as we see in 51:6 forward, 69:33, which is 32, 107:42. Indeed, verse 19a is a variation of Psalms 107:42a, which suggests, quote, a formulaic response celebrating the vindication of divine righteousness, end quote. Eliphaz cites Psalms 107:42b in 5:16, quote, deceit closes her mouth, end quote. Yahweh also laughs to scorn at those who presume to oppose him in Psalms 2:4. The fire in verse 20b may be taken as an ironic allusion to the fire of heaven which destroyed Job's flock, but here it more likely refers to the fire that erupts from the netherworld to consume the wicked on earth, as we see in 15, 30, and 34, and represents the forces of death identified in 15, 20 through 24. Traditionalists have taken the fire to be an allusion to Sodom, according to Ibn Ezra and Gersonides, or to the Noachian flood. As we see in Targum, the just sons of Noah see and rejoice, and the righteous Noah mocks them. Rashi, based on Tanchuma Bover 58:10, writes that they were judged with boiling water, with Rabbi Tanchuma expounding that they were tall, and when they did not die in the depths, then boiling water fell upon them from above.
From above? That's weird. Even the literalists I knew would say things like, the fountains of the deep broke open. So maybe like, the explosive boiling water from under the earth, sort of like a volcanic but water vibe thing happening, which admittedly, water floods a volcanic cavern and boils and expands really fast, and you could see something like that happening hypothetically, at least. But
I mean,
it was crazy, but it wasn't that crazy. It wasn't God sitting there with a pot of boiling water going, "Gah!"
If it only took 40 days for the rain to flood the entire earth to such a height, it would have needed to rain a lot. Like, I don't know, 1,000,000 inches.
By the fountains of the deep helped with the whole depth.
Yeah, helped. But I think the actual rain as well would have had to be like a crazy amount.
Oh, yeah.
And the friction of those drops all falling would have probably heated it up quite a bit. I'm sure someone's calculated how much heat that would generate.
Everybody is dead, Dave.
Everybody is dead in wherever that place is. It's 410,000 degrees.
They have ceased to be an ex-parent.
Yeah. So I haven't included the commentary on 21 through 25, mainly because I didn't notice that it was missing. So I'm going to just read from Habel's commentary on, I think 23 to 25 would suffice. So the basic lesson Job must learn is to return Shub in an attitude of submission and penitence. If he does, he will be restored, or more literally, rebuilt. It is by wisdom that a household is built, as we see in Proverbs 24:3. Evidence of submission is to be found in the removal of deceit, as we see in 5:16 and 15:16, and gold from their prime place in Job's life. Relocating gold in the dust of earth or the riverbed symbolizes restoration to a former original state. Ophir means the gold from Ophir, a place famous for this precious metal, as we see in 28:16 and compare Genesis 10:29. That gold, Betzel, is not necessarily a reference to wealth is evident from the promise of Shaddai being your gold in verse 25. Gold is obviously a symbol for the greatest good. Elsewhere, God is spoken of as your portion and your inheritance, as we see in Numbers 18:20 and compare Psalm 73:26. Wisdom is described as offering a profit greater than silver and a gain, tebu'ah, greater than gold, as we see in Proverbs 3:14. In Eliphaz's modification of this traditional wisdom association, he promises that Shaddai himself will be the ultimate gold, and that the gain, tebu'ah, will be the good, or rather, God the good one, in verse 21. Shaddai will thus be Job's wisdom, his wisdom teacher, and the good gain that accrues from wisdom. On 26 and 27, Clines writes that Eliphaz describes Job's future when he returns to God. Job will delight, tit aneg, in him, with the root used to suggest exquisite and refined delight, quote-unquote, in 27:10. Psalms 37:4 and Isaiah 58:14 also have that. Job would lift up his face toward God with confidence in his own innocence. This phrase is quite rare in the Old Testament, meaning to not be ashamed, seen 2 Samuel 2:22, or be happy in parallel with delight. Clines argues that this is not a condition for, but a consequence of Job's restoration, that he'll be able to make supplication, atar, for God's blessing on any matter at all, and be heard. For Job, this would be a restoration worth the name, since he has more than once experienced his desire for a reciprocal calling and answering, as we see in 13:22, 14:15, etc. He'll be able to pay his vows because what he has been seeking from God has been given him, as we've seen in Deuteronomy 23:22, which is 21, 2 Samuel 15:7, Psalms 22:26, etc. Eliphaz doesn't promise that Job will be so pious that he will pay his vows, but rather that he'll be given everything that he asks for, so that he'll be able to present the offerings he has vowed. And finally, on 29 and 30, Habel comments, quote, Eliphaz's portrait of restitution includes Job's elevation to the status of a patriarchal hero or mediator with the capacity to redeem the condemned by his powerful word. He would stand in the line of Abraham, especially Genesis 18:21-33. Ezekiel records a tradition of Noah, Daniel, and Job being men of great righteousness who could be expected to redeem a city, as we see in Ezekiel 14, verses 14 and 20. Job subsequently claims to have played the role of savior, delivering the poor and the fatherless from the oppressors, 1912. The role of Job as a potential mediator, a role linked by Elihu with angelic figures in 33:23, is more than the task of redeeming the defenseless from false justice, as in 29:12. Job's superior purity would provide the ransom for delivering someone who is guilty. This is precisely Job's task when Yahweh pronounces his verdict in the narrative epilogue in 42:7-9. Ironically, the guilty party is Eliphaz and his friends. And regarding Christians, so in their comments on Eliphaz's third speech, the fathers show, in general, an extremely critical attitude. Eliphaz's accusation against Job appears to them to be groundless and only become a starting point to show how an impious mind can deny the role of providence, distort facts, and give a false and negative picture of righteous man. When unrestrained, the tongue is always descending to what is worse, etc., etc. And the second part of Eliphaz's speech is commented on by the fathers under a more favorable light. They are able to recognize a certain correctness in some of his opinions and show how an allegorical interpretation of his words can suggest useful moral reflections. There.
Why, thank you. And now we have another comment from Jojo Freelancer KUP, who says, is there a group of people who specially refer Job? And what about Job's culture and the culture surrounding him?
I'm not sure what that question means, honestly.
Neither am I. Who specially refer Job?
Specifically refer to Job.
Or maybe specifically, yeah. But like either way, I still don't know what that question means.
It sounds like they're talking about another religious influence other than Judaism.
Well, I think
maybe.
I think
I don't
this
know.
person comes from a Muslim background, like they're ex-Muslim.
Oh, that's possible.
But I think he's asking if there are people who specialize in Job, the Book of Job.
Oh,
but like, I mean,
if that's the case, then
yeah,
I mean,
study the Book of Job.
We could ask Kip if
they
he
probably
knows
would be
anyone
able
who's read it.
Yeah. And I mean, they definitely be able to look at the writing and be able to see like what they were trying to do with culture. Like it seems, for example, in this chapter, as an example, that Eliphaz uses the name Shaddai for God. And this is supposed to be like, oh, look, this foreigner, they don't use the word Yahweh, they use something else. Even though it's still like a word that the Hebrews use as well.
Yeah, I believe
Jojo, by the way, he says revere. He says to revere Job.
Ah, okay.
Oh,
revere. Okay.
That makes much more sense than reefer.
Oh, that's interesting.
Revere Job. Okay. I mean, he's definitely admired and respected. I don't know if revere is quite the right word, but in a sense, yeah. I mean, he's that example of that man who was so righteous and never ever gave up on believing that God was just and good, and no matter what the evidence said. So,
yeah.
I mean, I think in a sense, like Middle Age and New Age religions, kind of, because of their like kind of they're based on Judaism and Christianity, they kind of talk about these other figures in a bit more of a reverential way. So like Muslims will consider Job a prophet, and I'm sure like you look at Baha'i or what's the other one, Babism or whatever, they might refer to some other characters that aren't as important, Enoch or whatever. They might refer to more than like.
Well, Enoch has long been a cultic figure of mysterious and considered to possess hidden knowledge, and that there's been the apocalypse of Enoch and the what was that? There's a bunch of writings attributed to being about Enoch, not necessarily written by him, but lots of mystical, cultish type of things that have come up. Modern New Age is less Christian in origin, but they just tend to grab everything and just, you know.
Yeah.
If you watch, I don't watch Spirit Science. It's you end up bashing your head in. But
he is one of those people who is very clever about hiding his hidden knowledge.
Yes, it's very hidden, very well hidden. But the funny thing is, if you watch, like I watch Mortimer 81's, series on Spirit Science sometimes, and oh my God, you for I believe one less God than you do. Not the case. I'm pretty sure he's never heard a thing he wasn't willing to at least pretend to believe for 5 minutes or until the next peyote trip.
And speaking of the next peyote trip, are we doing Saturday?
I can't. I have a event.
Okay.
Yeah, we could do. Yeah. We can't do Tuesday. I'm working on Tuesday.
I also have thing on Tuesday.
There's also like people are going to be busy with Christmas this week.
I think
have family things to do.
I think we should schedule for like the week afterwards.
Okay.
Because I don't think we will be available at all at the next week.
All right. So are we looking at like the first Tuesday of the next year?
I'll check. I'll see.
Are we what about like the 28th, the Sunday? Is that bad for everyone? Because I know
I can't do that.
Okay.
All right. Well, we'll probably look at Tuesday then. All right. Lawrence, there's nothing else we need to say, right?
Oh, there's plenty more we need to say. Like join the Discord and subscribe to the Behold Network, the best channel on YouTube, I hear.
Behold!
All right. And Tomer, take us out.
Yeah. Yeah, you should sleep, because if you don't sleep, you'll turn up like me and just be like a vampire. But apparently, I never sleep. You know why I never sleep? Because I make the fucking commentaries for every single part of this show, and I also have a thesis to work on, and I also have a fucking job to look for. So, you know, I'm not getting paid enough for this
the love of the game.
contribution of mine to this endeavor. So
as if you could get hired.
Press like and subscribe. Bye.
Yes, press like and subscribe to pay Tomer.
Yeah.